and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Time.
No.
Thomas trying to hike it back to Parayko, and he wins it. Look out! Parayko falls on his foot.
It is time, ladies and gentlemen.
No, God, please, no.
Yep.
No.
It's time for the conductor hat.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
I think we need to go to the Dodgers game tonight. I think Albert might hit 700 tonight. So we agree. We say, you know what? Fine. We'll go to dinner and we'll head straight there right afterwards. We'll head straight to the game right after dinner. Dinner ended as he hit his 700th home run.
Oh, man.
We were going to go to the game. He hit it in the first two at-bats. BKO'd a national airline. Your flight crew, including the pilot, are currently in the air. We're talking to scheduling to find out what to do.
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
I thought you guys were out of your minds with this thing.
No, BKO is taking national levels.
I thought it was ridiculous. I can't believe that we have continued to do this over the now year that we've been together. Guys,
so
I think it's real.
Why are you the way that you are? I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
It's time.
No.
It is time, ladies and gentlemen.
No, God, please, no.
Yep.
No.
It's time for the conductor hat.
101 ESPN.
Although, Marsh, you seem
News
like
alert.
you ready to burst everybody's bubble here.
Yeah.
What? What's going on?
This is as of 3 minutes ago. The Blues put out on X, Colton Parayko will undergo a scope on his left knee and will be reevaluated in 6 weeks. Jeremy Rutherford has quoted it, saying, breaking, Colton Parayko likely to miss remainder of regular season.
Oops. I did it again, baby.
I don't even know what to say.
Well,
It's BK and Ferrario. Alex put that together.
you will not be discussing to me today. You will direct all answers or questions towards Alex through Tanner because you have been officially shunned
I don't want to talk to him either.
for this show
We
today.
got an engineer in the building. He'll talk to Drew first.
You need to direct your questions via text because you have been shunned from this damn show.
I don't know what to say. I guess I should start with I'm sorry. I did this.
That's a really good start. Maybe
If
make
you
it.
want to blame somebody, you can put it on me. I will take all of the arrows today. This is my fault. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you guys have a mic drop, I suppose you could leave those today as well. The 101 ESPN app is where you go to leave the mic drops. They're presented by Scott Lee Heating. Sharon actually left a mic drop on the BKO yesterday. I was listening to this as I was driving in my car to pick up my son. In my car.
Good,
I wasn't on the air. It was the fast lane that was on the air, and Sharon left them a mic drop, which was just full of side swipes for me. Alex, go ahead and take a listen to this.
Hey guys, Sharon Clayton here. I was in my car when I heard CD talking about how Parayko is built different than him, and how CD is a little bit like Wolverine. And I was like, what is he talking about? And I almost ran off the road. So I was stuck in traffic, so I was able to flip open Twitter, and so aggravated. You know, and as far as BK goes, I just think that he needs to find somewhere else to live, and I'm more than willing to help him pack so he can move and take his saboteur qualities to another city.
Sharon.
Because it's totally all his fault. Putting on the damn conductor's hat, and BKO is infallible. So that's all I got to say.
Yeah, you're trash, buddy. That's all I can say. You're trash.
How did I get this power? Who gave this to me? If you're a faithful person, if you're a religion, please pray. to get this out of me. I don't know if we need to have somebody on the show, like some kind of an exorcism to take place here, but I didn't ask for this power, dude.
That's not the whole thing right here.
I left this city for 1 year. I have been in St. Louis. I have called this my home, basically, since the year 2016. I went to Kansas City for 1 year. Do you know what year that was?
Yeah, I do. And it was the best year of my life.
2019. I left in January. Do you know where the Blues were at in the standings when I left?
That would be last.
Do you know where they finished that year?
Number 1.
That same season was when the Cardinals, who, to be fair, none of you believed in. You hated them. They went to the NLCS that year, and then, the Nationals happened. But they went to the NLCS that year. Basically, every other year since 2016 has been the demise of one of the great organizations in pro sports of the last 25 years.
You came back to St. Louis and COVID came.
Yeah, that happened too. I did return in February, and then in March,
the question you shouldn't be asking is, where did I get this power from? The question is, why did you put that damn hat on?
The only reason the Chiefs won the Super Bowl in 2020 was because I left the day before the Super Bowl.
That's a good point. There is no KC dynasty if BK is still in Kansas City. They probably draft Trubisky instead of getting Mahomes.
You put that hat on, and you knew what was going to happen. You knew it. And then you doubled down at the end of the show, and you were talking about how acquiring Jared McCann just in case Robert Thomas gets hurt. Every time you open your mouth about things like this.
Fair, that was T-Bone's idea, and I will not take credit.
You doubled down.
No,
well, he hasn't played a game yet, T-Bone, so let's chill for a little bit.
You're acting like that matters right now. Nothing changed. There was no game played between when I said that the Blues were back and when Colton Parayko was announced he's going to be out for the rest of the regular season.
I just don't understand why you're like, this is a good idea. Let's put the hat on, because they'll continue to win when I do this. They'll embrace the success. I'm lucky. Have you ever once walked around and said, I'm a lucky dude?
I married the woman of my dreams. So, my son is the greatest thing that's ever happened. I was fortunate there. That's pretty much it, man. I got to tell you, that's kind of all I got.
I just can't, man.
My personal life is, I was very... This is going to say it all about me. I was very fortuitous in when I arrived at 101 ESPN, considering the pandemic resulted, unfortunately, in changes at the station, and I happen to be one of the ones that benefited from those changes. So that's kind of all I got, man.
From 2:10 yesterday afternoon until about 7:15 in the morning, it has just been miserable for me. Because this team legit had a shot at a playoff, have Jordan Binnington, has Colton Parayko, and you just throw that down the toilet in a matter of a minute.
I just picture you when you got home yesterday. Your girls came up to you. Dad, you look sad. Well, let me tell you why I'm sad. It's because my co-host, Brandon Michael Kiley.
I played him that open.
I think Michael's his middle name.
Yeah, that's correct.
It's Kurt. It's actually Curse is what it should be.
I just want to hear from you guys.
No.
The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. It's presented by Scott Lee Heating. I didn't ask for these powers. And some people have said, why don't you use them for good? Why don't you curse Chicago sports? Or why don't you curse one of the guys like Nazem Kadri? Why didn't you use it on him in that playoff run? Here's the truth. I can't use these on anything that I don't believe. The power only exists when I truly believe something. And yesterday, in my heart of hearts, when I put that hat on my head, I truly believed it was time to choo-choo. The Blues are coming. The Blues are coming. I believed that in my heart. And that's why this happened. Because I believed in it. I wanted it so badly.
I speak for all of St. Louis. Stop believing.
Not for me, but for you.
Stop believing.
I wanted it for you, St. Louis. You deserved this.
I feel bad for Mizzou fans coming up in March because this guy had been all in, and now they can't rebound or get a stop.
That's the problem.
What have they done since?
I know.
I said this is a Final Four team. I watched them against Alabama. Damn it, I beat KO'd Mizzou too.
They're losing to the Ivy League in round one.
Oh, my God. I said that they were going to go to the Final Four after they beat Alabama, and guess what? They haven't played a lick of defense since. They haven't gotten a single stop.
BK was all in on the Tigers being a college football playoff team last year. Guess what they didn't do? I don't even remember what bowl game they played in.
You know what?
It wasn't the college football playoff.
You know what stings the worst about it? Man, they play at 9 o'clock tonight with no Colton Parayko. They play at 9 o'clock tonight, and I have nothing to get excited for because of you.
All right. So here's the thing. The season's not over. They're going to play hockey again.
Oh, just shut up. Just shut up with your optimism.
I don't have a lot of it. I'm not going to lie to you. So this is one positive for Blues fans. I'm really low on this team right now. If I'm in Doug Armstrong's shoes, I seriously consider what's the plan? Because I don't know if this team can win at the levels that we need them to win without Colton Parayko. So we're going to discuss that coming up on the other side. With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live at the ENB Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center. We've got Bradford Bruns holding things down for us back in the studio today. If you guys want to get involved, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved. Eat bleep, BK. BK is the Devil's Nepo baby. That's another one that's come in on the text line. BK, I just want to know, what were you thinking? BK, I would chip in to see an exorcism of you on the YouTube channel. Some say BK was patient 0 during COVID.
Oh.
I like
BK,
this
I'll
one.
give you a realtor so that way you can get your home listed as soon as humanly possible. And what time should I come with the packing boxes? That comes from Sharon, who sent in that mic drop.
I like this one from MD 2020 on our graveyard chat. Put the conductor hat again on, you POS.
People chiming in with praise in all directions. So if you guys would like to get your thoughts in, feel free to do so. I'll take the arrows today from all of you. We've got Mike McKenna, who I'm sure is thrilled with me. He's going to join us coming up at 11:30. But next, how do you replace Colton Parayko? Because I BKO'd him. His knee has now gone to Swiss cheese. So what do you do without that guy in the lineup for the next 6 weeks? And does it change the direction that they decide to go in the next 3 hours prior to this year's NHL trade deadline? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
You put that hat on and you knew what was going to happen.
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios, this is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We're broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center. If you've got a piece of your mind that you'd like to give to myself, BK, for the BKO yesterday, I, first of all, apologize. That's on me. I don't have any control of this thing. It works in mysterious ways. But you can get those thoughts in on the Scott Lee Heating mic drop. We'll get to those throughout the day today. But, Alex, we do have to talk about what this means for the Blues, right? My powers have put them into a precarious situation. They are now going to be playing for the foreseeable future, really the rest of the regular season, according to the initial timeline, without Colton Parayko, who is one of the best defensemen in the NHL this year. He's second in the league in 5-on-5 goals so far this year. If you just look at time on ice, also second in the NHL so far this year, behind Zach Werenski, who, as we found out a week ago, is a very good hockey player. Sixth in the league in block shots. Like, the guy he eats minutes, he plays against the toughest lines in the NHL, and he does so to an incredibly high degree, including adding the offense this year, and him and Fowler have become just this great pairing for you defensively, and now everything changes. I was listening to Blues head coach Jim Montgomery yesterday on the Fast Lane, and the way that he described it, reading between the lines, it sounds as though they're going to put Nick Leddy on that quote-unquote top pair. They're going to pair him with Cam Fowler, and they're going to kind of fill things out from there. Justin Falk will be still with Broberg, and then that third pair defensively is going to be Tyler Tucker with Ryan Suter. My guess is the Cam Fowler pairing will actually be your second pair now, and they will go with Broberg as the de facto number one defenseman. Alex, how much does this impact how you view the team the rest of the way without Colton Parayko?
I mean, it affects them massively. I mean, you're taking out possibly the most important player on this team right there with Jordan Binnington. I actually, and I know that's what the line combinations were yesterday, I don't think that lasts. I think at some point over the next few games, we see Broberg take the spot of Parayko and play on his offhand with Cam Fowler, and then Nick Leddy goes to the left side as normal to play with Justin Falk. And I know that doesn't sound very good for a lot of people, but to me, and this was just totally could be the Blues optimism here, which doesn't curse the Blues for some reason, BK, which is crazy. But I think not that Broberg can be Parayko, but Broberg can be 75-80% of Parayko. If you look at what those two guys have done since the Four Nations return, Parayko in 11 games, 4 goals, 7 points, a +7 in 21 minutes and 49 seconds. Broberg, 11 games, 3 goals, 6 points, +4 in 19 minutes and 48 seconds. So Broberg's playing 30 seconds less per game than what Colton Parayko is. And in a couple of those big games, he played more than Colton Parayko, specifically against the Winnipeg Jets, against the Seattle Kraken, and against the Washington Capitals. So I think you can at least fill the void of Colton Parayko defensively with Philip Broberg. The real question is going to be, how do you fill the void of Philip Broberg? Because you have 2 legit number one defensemen, and you can't replace that with a Nick Leddy, a Justin Falk, a Tyler Tucker, a Ryan Suter. I'm not completely out on this team yet, because I do think this team has taken this us against the world mentality now, and it's what's led them to have success. And you still have, in my opinion, one of the best big game goaltenders in the game. You're just going to have a massive team mentality every single time that the opposition is going into the offensive zone, because when you don't have Colton Parayko, you lose the ability to break up plays as easy as he does.
I just think this is such a big loss, man. If we're going to sing the praises of Colton Parayko all year long, and we should have, for being as good as he has been, and then we talk all the last, 5 years about the importance of a legitimate number one defenseman and how difficult it is to be a contender without that guy, and now that Parayko has emerged as that player, I can't now, in the same breath, talk about how you can overcome the loss of that player. I know it's going to sound pessimistic today, and I'm not trying to pee in your guys' Cheerios. I promise you. Yesterday, we were talking about how the Blues should really go for it, and this team has earned the opportunity to see it through at a minimum and possibly to force the hand of Doug Armstrong to go out there and acquire pieces, or at least a piece, that helps stabilize things and really just push you into the postseason. I still feel like that was the case yesterday, but we were operating under partial information. If you then learn that your second most important player on the team, in my opinion, behind only Jordan Binnington, is not going to play for you the rest of the regular season, and you're already a point out with games in hand to deal with as well, dude, it is just hard for me to see how this team overcomes this injury. And even if they do, the Blues are operating in a situation where he will be reevaluated in 6 weeks. That does not necessarily mean he is returning to hockey in 6 weeks. That means they're going to look at it in 6 weeks and say, where are we at with the recovery process? So even if they hold on to this thing and maybe the teams around them in the Western Conference decide to tear it down, which is possible. There's talk right now that the Vancouver Canucks might be trading Brock Besser somewhere. So they may tear it down a little bit. The Calgary Flames, I just don't think they're very good. Joey Vitale told us that yesterday as well. Utah, same thing. Very flawed hockey team. So it's possible the Blues are just the best of the bad teams in the West that can get into the wild card. You're still probably not going to have Colton Parayko for the playoffs in that first round, overwhelmingly.
Maybe. I mean, Broberg...
we're 6 weeks away from the end of the regular season. And at that point in time, they're planning to reevaluate him.
Totally. But they were reevaluating Robert Thomas and Philip Broberg, what was that, 5 weeks in, and they were ready to go by the time that the reevaluation kicked in?
Sure, and they didn't look like themselves.
Thomas, that one is a little easier
and torn ligament for
That's the one that you want to hope
Broberg.
to, because
And that was the knee.
And he didn't look like himself for 3 more months.
Yeah.
He didn't look like himself again until last week. So this is why I'm saying, like, as of today, unless they're like Brandon Carlo, he's a defenseman for the Boston Bruins. I was talking to my buddy who covers the Boston Bruins. He said he thinks like a second-round pick is probably the asking price for Brandon Carlo. I would be interested in Carlo, not just for the here and now, but for the future as well. He's a guy that I would like to have on this team for 2026. So if that is the kind of move that you want to make, and he can plop in there and he replaces some of, like 60% of, the skill set that Colton Parayko brings to the table, that I'm willing to do. But to me, how much does this change what you're planning to do? It changes everything. If I'm in Doug Armstrong's shoes, yesterday I was not listening on really anybody on my roster. After that news was broken to him, that changes. And now I'm back open to doing things that as of this time yesterday, I was unwilling to do. So I know I am very much going to come off as the negative one today, and I totally get it. But I think you have to have a sober mind and think about this of where are we at sans that player? And to me, they're not a legitimate contender without that guy.
Well, what works for this Blues team is you being a pessimist, because this team, for all we know, Parayko could be healthy in 2 weeks. But I'm not changing my mindset. I'm not going to start selling now just because I lose Colton Parayko. I don't think you have pieces that warrant you selling. Are you now more willing to be the middleman for a lot of teams and eat some salary to get some draft picks?
I'm willing to listen on just about anything that I was like what we were talking about 3 weeks ago. I'm listening on that stuff now.
I'm not trading away Braden Shen right now. I'm not going to pull the rug out from under this team that did go on a run that they needed to. And yes, they did it because they had Colton Parayko.
I can't worry about feelings right now, though.
I'm not worried about feelings. I'm worried about development for my younger players that have this mindset right now. We just heard Jake Neighbors say yesterday it's the most excited he's been at the rink. And you're just going to
changes that? Colton Parayko being out for the rest of the year.
Not for them. Not for them.
It does.
I disagree. I think they're going to come out against Anaheim, and I think they're going to compete. Is it going to last? Probably not.
That's the thing. Yes, they might look great against Anaheim, and they might even have a back-to-back situation where they look really good on Saturday as well. But that's going to change. I saw this when Jim Montgomery was hired, and they fired their coach that it seems like they didn't like particularly much. They had a really nice 5-game stretch coming out of that. And then what happened? Eventually the reality sets in.
That's fine, but they've been playing a very strategic style of hockey.
Totally.
Offensively, they've been a very effective team. Defensively, they've played well. You're plucking Colton Parayko out of this. But what you do still have is you have one of the best goaltenders in any situation like this is right now.
Totally.
Your offense is still healthy. And for me, you got an easy schedule down the rest of the way.
Absolutely.
You don't have the same schedule as Vancouver and Calgary. Vancouver's potentially selling Brock Besser. Utah's not adding. They're just re-signing guys. Calgary's not really going to be doing anything.
Sounds like they're doing nothing to
So I'm not going to just all of a sudden, because I lose Colton Parayko, say, yep, we're going to sell Braden Shen for 3 prospects. We're going to give up. No. If somebody comes to me and is still willing to give me a Godfather offer for Shen, I'll consider it now, maybe more than what I was. But now I might be working the phones a little bit differently. Maybe I'm not looking for a depth forward that upgrades my centerman. Maybe now my forwards are just going to have to be as good as they have been, and I go find a placeholder for the top 4 of my right-handed defensemen.
Yeah. I get it, and I think these are the 2 perspectives that you can have. I think in the room that they are talking right now today, there's probably differing perspectives on what they should do. How do we handle this? And there should be. That's healthy discourse, right? Like you need to have differing viewpoints on what is the positive of selling today? What is the negative of selling today? What is the positive of buying today? What is the negative of that? And there should be somebody in the room that takes the idea of, hey, we should stick with what we got. Don't make any moves. Let's see what these guys can do for us, and then we'll reconvene in the offseason and figure out where our holes are. But as I look at the roster today, you've got a massive hole on the right side defensively, a huge hole on the right side defensively. So I don't think standing pat should be an option today. I think that's the worst case scenario for this team is you stick with what you got. Because I don't think that you're good enough right now on the right side defensively. I just don't. I don't think you have a single legit top 4 defenseman on the right side. I think before you had one, and now that guy's been pulled from your lineup. And if you decide to put Broberg on the right side, now you basically have 2 defensemen that you trust at any given time, and they might be playing together on the ice. So for 35 minutes every game, you don't trust the defensemen that are out there the same way that you did previously. I know this sounds harsh, and I understand it, but it's the same thing that we've talked about with the Cardinals. When you don't have the guy in the middle of your lineup, everybody else is asked to be a little too much. This has been the case for the Blues for years now, where they didn't have the guy, and so everybody else is asked to perform a little too high compared to what they're capable of. So to me, if you're going to go in a scenario where your mindset is we're pushing, we believe in this roster, I think that's understandable given the way that they've played for the last 6 weeks now. But if you're going to do that, you better add to the defensive core. Yesterday, I was talking about a third-line center. Sonny's been good enough. That third line has been good enough. I wouldn't worry about that today. If you're going to go for it, you should be looking for a guy that is a legit top 4 defenseman on the right side because it's something you're going to need next year anyways. Get somebody with term that's not old. Brandon Carlo, to me, would be the number 1 guy that I'm looking at.
Yeah, I mean, look, yesterday that first-round pick meant nothing to me, and today it still means nothing to me because a prospect doesn't help you in there. So if I can go get a right-side defenseman or even a left-side defenseman who can play the right side, the first one that came to mind for me was call up the Seattle Kraken and get the guy that I've been talking a lot about for a long time, Jamie Alexiak. Make it a package deal. But I would be looking at a Brandon Carlo. I would be looking at a Brant Clark from the LA Kings, a Jamie Alexiak. I'm going to scour the market and see what I can get because for me, I think Broberg can handle top pair minutes on the right side. I'm going to try and find another top 4 defenseman that can fit in to a pack mentality because that's what you're going to have to do with this defense. You don't have a guy that's a difference maker in Colton Parayko. That I agree with. You do have a difference maker in Jordan Binnington, though. And if I can get a defense that fits into the system that Jim Montgomery is trying to accomplish, which has been working very well. Like, we'll talk Parayko, but
it has been working very well. Parayko's a big part of why.
Broberg's played 21-plus minutes in 5 of the 7 games that they've played since the Four Nations break. Like, I think if you can find something that's big, mobile, and can fit into your top 4, I think you can get by.
Yeah, I agree on the notion that, look, I'm not selling off pieces at this year's deadline. I don't think they're in that spot. And even if, like, Shen, I would have traded Shen even if Parayko was healthy for the right offer. That's still on the table. My offer, what I'm asking for him, doesn't change. I also don't mind if they stand pat. Like, I know your guys' argument is, hey, you got to pick a lane now. You either got to sell the pieces or you got to go out and help add. And I think if they are adding, I do think it has changed too. They've got to go out and get a defenseman. The one thing, though, for me is I'm not going to overpay for a Brandon Carlo to get him in here. And I think this team, if you keep them together right now and you do just stand pat, I think they will be good enough still to make it to the playoffs. And
without Colton Parayko, you believe the Blues are good enough to get into the playoffs? This team can make the playoffs without Parayko. And it's because their schedule is the easiest one in the NHL, and it's because the rest of the West that they're competing with is not going to be able, I don't think, can beat them. Like the Canucks, trading away Besser, as we said. Flames not going to do anything in Utah I don't think is better than them. I think they can make the playoffs by standing pat You
today.
think the Blues are better than Utah, Calgary, and Vancouver when the Blues do not have Colton Parayko in the lineup?
Yes.
Let me read you the Calgary Flames schedule over the next 8 games. The Canadiens, the Canucks, easy. Colorado Avalanche, Toronto Maple Leafs, New York Rangers, New Jersey Devils, Dallas Stars, Edmonton Oilers, Colorado Avalanche, Vegas Golden Knights, Minnesota Wild, Kings Golden Knights.
They're 15th in the league in strength of schedule remaining this season. The Blues are dead last. They have the easiest strength of schedule remaining. Utah is 27th, so they have the sixth easiest schedule remaining the rest of the way. I don't think it's about the schedule. I don't think it's about the schedule. I don't think it's about like what we've seen necessarily even prior to this point. We're basically everybody's even between now and the end of the season. It's about, do you believe in the Blues? Because when the Blues are playing poorly, they can lose to anybody in the NHL. We've seen that. When they're playing well, they can beat anybody in the NHL, as we saw over the last 5 weeks. My fear is that without Colton Parayko, they're not the team that we saw over the last 5 weeks. Because he has been such a massive piece to what they've been trying to accomplish. And you have to find a way to replace some of that. And you're right, Alex. Maybe it's Broberg. I think Broberg replaces what Broberg has been. So whether you're saying he's replacing Parayko or whatever, eventually you have to have somebody that replaces what Parayko's done for you. And my opinion as of today is that they do not have anybody currently on the roster ready to do that. They need to add from the outside. I don't know who that player is going to be. I would target somebody in Brandon Carlo who has the size and can be that player for you, not just for the now, but also for the foreseeable future. I don't think you have anybody currently in the system that necessarily profiles to be that guy. So if that means trading a first-round pick, which is way too much for Brandon Carlo, it is. It's an overpay. But look at the prices that are being paid right now. The prices are pretty high for defensemen. Jake Wallman was just traded for a first-round pick, dude.
That was a way overpay.
Totally. But this is what you get into this time of the year. It's why, like, I'm listening on Shin today. But if you don't go that direction, I totally get it. I don't blame anybody for that. I think you got to go out there and get somebody. That would be the direction that I would go. I personally believe they should either plan on adding a right-handed defenseman or plan on selling. I think you have to choose your path, and today is the day you got to do it. You got 2.5 hours to figure it out. Coming up next, we'll ask Mike McKenna what he would do this year at the deadline. He joins us next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is your home for Blues hockey. And every month during the season, you can register to win tickets to an upcoming Blues game. Enter to score free Blues tickets now at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 app.
Brought to you by Ted Drewes. Real custard, real tradition. Ted Drewes. It's St. Louis.
basketball is on ESPN. This Sunday, it's a Sun Belt semifinals doubleheader. Coverage starts at 4:30. The NCAA plays on 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Deadline day is upon us. Good morning. This is Bradford Bruns with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. All remains quiet so far on the Blues front as the NHL approaches its trade deadline at 2 p.m. Central today. As a programming reminder, we will have Blues GM and President of Hockey Operations Doug Armstrong on the Fast Lane at 2:30 with his post-deadline presser. This evening at 9 p.m., the Blues dropping the puck in Anaheim pregame, starting on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN at 8 o'clock sharp. Robert Thomas looking to push that streak to 12 consecutive games with a point. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedorko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. We're going between the pipes with former NHL goaltender Mike McKenna.
Between the Pipes is refreshed by Macadoodle Spirits, fine wine, beer, and cigars. Now open in Darden Prairie.
All right, let's go to the Callier and Thompson hotline. Happy to be joined by Mike McKenna, former NHL goalie. He joins us each and every Friday here on the show, and Mike McKenna is one of the best in the business. We'll talk a little bit about Jordan Binnington and what we've seen from him since the break here in just a little bit. But, Mike, we got to start with the big news from yesterday. We came on our show at 11 o'clock and said, man, this team looks awesome, and it's time to continue to fortify what they have. Either you stick with what you got or you got to add prior to this year's deadline because they have earned that opportunity. Now Colton Parayko is going to miss the rest of the regular season, and it feels a little different. What was your reaction yesterday when you saw that news that Parayko is going to be out for the next 6 weeks, and how it applies to their plans at the deadline?
Well, thanks as always for having me. It was a big dose of, oh, come on. You know, the reason being is because Parayko is somebody you really just can't replace. I don't think it's going to affect what Doug Armstrong wants to do when it comes to trade deadline, though. You have to make plans for what can happen. And if the Blues are going to make a knee-jerk reaction to overpay to get somebody to try to fill Parayko's shoes, I mean, unless you can do it for a late pick, fifth round or later, or maybe package a couple minor leaguers, I don't see the value in that for a team that's still, when it all comes down to it, 20 games from now, 19 games from now, the Blues are going to be scrapping to make the Stanley Cup playoffs. Still, you know, are they a better team than Canucks? Yeah, I think they are. Are they better than the Flames? You know, right now, yeah. But with Parayko missing, we don't know. So it kind of was a bit of a gut punch, but there's a flip side to this, guys. I actually really like that this is going to give, you know, a couple guys a little bit of time here to show what they can do again, right? Matt Kessel gets called back up. You know, Tucker's been waiting in the wings here with a new 2-year contract, but everything I've heard out of Springfield about Matt Kessel is that his offensive side continues to grow even more, and his defensive side keeps getting better and better. So is Matt Kessel Colton Parayko? He's not. But this is a chance for him to show that he belongs on this blue line in the future, and I still like that hungry aspect.
Mike, how aggressive do you think Doug Armstrong should be now of looking at maybe finding somebody who can fit into the defense without Colton Parayko?
And, Mike, since you've been on the air with us, Luke Schenn was just traded to Winnipeg for a 2026 second-round pick and a 2027 fourth-round pick, just to give you a little bit of an idea on where the prices are trending for defensemen.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I got the trade tracker sitting up on my second screen here at Macadoodle's Darden Prairie, and the last one I got is Dylan Cousins and Dennis Gilbert from the Senators to the Sabres. So you're a little ahead of me. Thank you. The prices are bottom line, the prices are way too high to try to fortify the blue line for the Blues. And I think they already did that when they got Cam Fowler. I mean, that was the answer to me. They have in-house solutions. And again, they're not Colton Parayko. I get it. They're not yet. But getting Nick Leddy back was a big help for the team, right? This is a self-ad. Getting Broberg healthy again as well. Now, if the Blues were down another one of their top 6 defensemen, guys, I'd be saying, yeah, you got to do something. I just don't think it's worth it for them to make a move right now on D.
So I mentioned the name earlier today, Mike, and I'll just go ahead and throw it past you because you were the first one that I can recall that mentioned Nick Leddy whenever we were doing the conversations prior to that year's deadline. Brandon Carlo is 6'5". He's a big defenseman for the Boston Bruins. He's certainly not perfect. It sounds like he might be available prior to today's deadline. Is that something that you would explore? He's got at least the size that Colton Parayko you no longer have with him being sidelined.
Yeah, I just don't think it's quite the same upside as you've seen there.
Sure.
I mean, and what's happened is you're starting to get down the batting order here. And that's what you got to be careful of is you can't make a move hoping a player turns out to be somebody. It's got to be concrete if you're spending dollars. Now, this was what could have been the complete game changer for a move with the Bruins was there's a name of a person that's sitting in Edmonton now, guys. You know who I might be talking about? He went from the Bruins. Yes. Now imagine a Carlo and Frederick deal to the Blues. Then we'd be cooking with gas there. Well, it's not available.
He's hurt though, right? So, it sounds like he's not going to be back for a little while.
No, but that's where if you had made a play for a long term to get somebody in, to me, that's what would have made a bit more sense for a long term play. So you're adding layers to what you're now acquiring as assets. So my focus really isn't on outside help for the Blues. It's really from within. And I mean, guys, the way they've played for the last month now, I mean, geez, like give them a 1-goal lead and look what happens. 11-2-0 when they score first, like sitting just outside the playoffs, riding a good wave of momentum. It's a big loss for Parayko, but you bank these things in when you're a general manager in the NHL. You know these things can happen, and ultimately this team's 6-2-2 in their last 10 games. They're trending the right direction. They're getting good goaltending. They've got a shot. And I got to know that Doug Armstrong has to be happy with the performance of some of the players who, frankly, at the start of the year, they weren't bringing it enough, and now you're seeing it.
And, Mike, I would imagine if you're a part of that front office, that's priority number one right now, correct? Even without Colton Parayko, you look at this to the field that you said of Calgary and Vancouver and Utah, and you're probably the better team of those three. Priority number one is we got to get to the playoffs. One for the players and two for the money to the front office that are the ownership group that spends to the cap.
Yep, and it is. It's not just the goal; it's the expectation, guys. I mean, Tom Stillman, Donnie Lutz, all these guys in the ownership group, man, they're not here to play fiddlesticks with people. It's here to win a Stanley Cup, even in a team that has been retooling. You know what I mean? Like this isn't, and the fans, like, come on, man! I'm in that building last week, and the Blues are still at that stage. I think they were 5-6 points out of a playoff spot. My daughter skated between the first and second period. Had one go off the post, by the way. She was disappointed, but like the fans are there. They believe the fans haven't lost this team at all. They deserve that, and I know that the players are feeling that, and I think that's a big response. Ever since that Four Nations tournament, man, like there's a real positive wave to it. And it's led by that guy between the pipes. Jordan Binnington's been doing it, man.
So last question that I've got for Mike McKenna on this, and I do want to ask you a little bit about Jordan Binnington here in just a moment. But, Mike, my outlook for this team is a little more pessimistic. And I'm just going to have full disclosure. It's what I said at the beginning of the show today, so I want to run it by you. Parayko, to me, is such a big piece of what they've been doing. He's been one of the best defensemen in the NHL. And now you look at it, and I don't think that the Blues are the same team without him on the ice, and he's not expected to return until after the regular season has come to a close. If you're in Doug Armstrong's shoes, and that is closer to your view of the team right now than what we've been saying previously, which is a little more optimistic in terms of what they could be. Are you considering making the move that we've all been dreading, which is potentially moving on from Braden Shin, if those prices end up meeting your asking, which is like potentially two of the top prospects for the Toronto Maple Leafs and a first-round pick? Are you even exploring that at this point in time? Never mind. The Leafs are getting Scott Laughton.
It's over.
Guys, it was a race to the second and third line role between Lotz and Shen. You know what I mean? Like it was these two guys and they're left. Here we go. We'd already seen some of the depth moves that have been made around the league for centermen, and they were kind of the last two standing. So, and I would still listen to anything. I would still have a great hesitancy to see moving on from Braden Shen, who's played great hockey. Especially, in the last month, man, he's come on strong. May not be goal scoring, but his production in every other area has been really strong. So I would explore. I'd be willing to explore, but man, I'd have to get one hell of a prospect and a roster player for Shen. It's not just prospects. I'd need a quality roster player on top of a prospect to make that happen. Who's going to be able to pay that price? I don't know if it's there, but you never know. Look at Dallas. I mean, Dallas is acquiring Rantanen from Carolina. It looks like we're just waiting to hear what contract details might be on that. And that's a huge. Well, thank you. You happen to have it. So, it's an ever-changing world with that salary cap going up, but you have to listen to everything as a GM. But the price on a Braden Shen has to be really high, really high.
All right, we'll get you out of here on this, Mike. You are our goalie expert, and Jordan Binnington has been playing as well as anybody in the NHL since that Four Nations face-off. What are you seeing from him? What is allowing him to be so successful right now?
Well, two things. We all know Binnington's a goalie that when he's confident and when he's looking like he's calm and and he's not moving more than he needs to and tracking well, he's one of the best goalies in the world. I think he's still riding that confidence wave. I think it's been accentuated by him making some big saves at big moments, which tends to come with confidence. But it also comes with the fact that he hasn't seen over 30 shots in about 3 weeks, guys. The Blues have been detailed. They are playing the way the coach wants them to. And I think it's paying off for Binnington. He knows if he makes 2 to 3 big saves a game, the Blues are going to win. Or they're going to at least take it to a shootout. And I tell you what, I'm going to pivot super quick here. When you look at the bench after last game, who's the first person that Jim Montgomery goes to hug on the bench? Did either of you notice?
Yep.
Who was it?
It was Binnington, wasn't it?
It was Dave Alexander, the Blues goalie coach.
Yeah.
So on the bench, Dave Alexander, who's typically up in the top, watching the game from above, the Blues goalie coach, he is a maestro of the shootout. The success that the Blues had, he cherry picks the players to go against the goaltender because he's been scouting that goalie for the last month on what they do in shootouts. Jake Neighbors goes right on in, motors on down, and buries one on Kemper. So does Robert Thomas with a changeup. You know why? Because Dave Alexander knew these were the right guys. Monty looks like he was going to kiss him on the cheek. So huge shout out to Dave Alexander, one of the best goalie coaches in the NHL. And the job that he's doing, not just on the goaltenders, but also giving his team a chance to win in the shootout.
Yeah, Monty said multiple times how he just defers to David Alexander on how to handle the goaltenders throughout the season. Mike, I don't know if you know this, but BK is a curse, and he's the reason that Colton Parayko is injured, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to need to get to Macadoodles right now to wash away some of these sorrows. So tell us what we got going on out at Macadoodles.
Well, boo you, BK. Why are you doing that to the poor guy for? But if you do feel like having a festive cocktail or 7 or 8 at your home, I hope. Yeah, we got fun stuff happening here at Macadoodles. We've got some events coming up. Next Thursday, the 13th, we have our Irish Whiskey Festival from 4 to 9 in the afternoon and evening. If you spend $50, you get a raffle ticket to get an Old Forester birthday bourbon, a Jimmy Russell Wild Turkey, a 13th Colony Double Oak. We have 5 separate big-time allocated bottles that'll be raffled off on Thursday the 13th at the end of the night. We've also got stuff going in our wine room. We've got a golf bag to give away from Maomi, courtesy of they sponsor the PGA Tour, guys. So we got a golf bag. We got a putting green from Maomi. That's anybody who walks in the store can enter to win that with the QR code. We've got them all around the building. We're running specials, of course, on bourbon. Vodka's starting to move. Tito's $29.97. You got Busch Light sitting in the beer cooler at $22.97. We're welcome to come see everybody. Tastings every day here at Macadoodles, but be here on the 13th for that Irish Whiskey Festival. Great deals on Irish whiskey, and we'll be sampling it the whole time.
Alex, they've got the Maestro tequila going on right now. They've got a sale on Angel's Envy, which is one of my favorite bourbons personally. You can check all that out, by the way, on their website. You can shop online, go in the store. They'll have it ready to go, pick up there whenever you arrive at the door. Hey, Mike, we appreciate the time as always, man. Thanks so much for hopping on with us today. We'll talk with you again next week.
That sounds great. Let's keep hoping for some victories here, man. Everybody enjoy trade deadline. I'm telling you, be positive, man. It's looking up for the Blues. Let's go.
Thanks,
We'll
Mike.
do. That's Mike
We needed
McKenna.
that.
Appreciate his time as always, joining us here on BK and Ferrario. All right, we've got some updates on the trade deadline that we'll get to for you guys coming up on the other side. Plus, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything, sports or otherwise. Next here on 101 ESPN.
You can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance Team Studio Cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Studio Cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
.101 ESPN has your chance to score a family 4-pack of tickets to see the Professional Women's Hockey League Takeover Tour on Saturday, March 29th at Enterprise Center. See an exciting PWHL face-off between the Ottawa Charge and the Boston Fleet, giving St. Louis hockey fans a chance to experience the top women's hockey players in the world in action. Get all the ticket details and get entered to win that free 4-pack of tickets for the PWHL Takeover Tour right now, either at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app, powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios, this is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's Questions and Answers on 101 ESPN.
It's been a much more active trade deadline than I was expecting. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. I'm going to run through a few of these moves that have taken place. Winnipeg is active right now. Luke Shin going to the Jets for a 2026 second-round pick and a 2027 fourth-round pick. It's not the only move that they've made. Brandon Tanev is also going to Winnipeg for a 2027 second-round pick. Yesterday, we saw Jake Wallman traded to the Edmonton Oilers, so the defenseman defenseman market is really picking up. What'd they trade for him? Well, of course, a first-round pick for Jake Wallman, who in the offseason, Detroit wanted off their team so badly that they pulled a Kevin Hayes and said, here, please take a second-round pick with this player to get his money off of our books. Of course, in the offseason, the Edmonton Oilers didn't have enough room on their roster for Philip Broberg or Dylan Holloway. Now they're spending basically the equivalent of that money on Trent Frederick, who's not playing right now because of injury, and Jake Wallman, who was a salary dump in the offseason.
We have the return for Scott Lawton, who was traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Okay. It is a first-round pick. I don't know what year yet. They're saying it's a first-round pick, and Nikita Grabenkin.
Oh, wow.
Didn't even give it one of their top prospects, which tells me Toronto, and for those that missed it, Bob McKenzie on TSN reported that Toronto really wanted Shen. Shen wasn't willing to waive his no-trade clause to Toronto. But, I mean, I don't really know what the package was that they were offering up that would have enticed the Blues to really go through with it, because that's not a whole lot. It's good for Toronto to not have to give up your top prospects, which kind of seemed like some of their thought process. But, yeah, Nikita Grabenkin, who was a former fifth-round draft pick, and a first-round pick for Scott Lawton.
The Grabenkin is a guy who, according to The Athletic, the sixth best prospect in their system. Quote, he has a clear path to become an honest, complimentary bottom six NHL winger and a fan favorite at that. So he's a player that helps out in the bottom six. It is certainly not the player that we were talking about as potential options for Braden Shen. If we're just being honest, I think this is actually the smarter move for Toronto.
Oh, totally agree.
I think it makes more sense for them than what they could have done to acquire a Braden Shen. Scott Lawton isn't Braden Shen. He's a perfectly fine middle six center who's going to play a solid game. He's got a little grit to his game. So he's like, if Braden Shen on a scale of 1 to 10 for that style of player is a 7, Scott Lawton's like a 5.5. And they were able to give up 30% of the cost acquisition for him.
And
so
it sounds like Toronto's getting
smarter.
And it sounds like Toronto's getting draft picks, according to Darren Traeger.
Yeah, this was a good move for them.
Yeah, I mean, it always made sense for Toronto to not sell the farm to try and go get, or even a roster player to get Braden Shen as much as you wanted him. But I'm sure if Bob McKenzie's reporting, which I would imagine is accurate, Toronto was probably told no also, so they had to go a different direction.
That's the other thing. If Braden Shen just flat out says, hey, I'm not moving. Yeah. I don't want to go anywhere, it totally changes what I've been saying earlier today, which is like, you at least have to listen on it. It sure sounds like Doug Armstrong was listening. I don't know how much he was listening, but he was listening to some degree if he got that impression from Braden Shen. And in that scenario, yeah, I would say you add.
Yep.
You try to see this thing through. Once you're told no on that front, now that changes what your plan of action is. You go add. To me, the guy that I would go out and try to add is Brandon Carlo. If you think that it's somebody else, totally fair. Alex, you've been talking about going to Seattle and said, hey, 2 for 1. Let's go ahead and get Jamie Alexiak, who's a big Mongoon that you've been talking about for 2 years.
Straight.
Got another year left on his deal at like $4 million. And you add forward
Jared McCann,
former 40-goal scorer, who's more of a 25-goal scorer now. Just go do that. That's fine.
Deal.
First-round pick in return, give up a prospect, bada boom, bada bing. You're feeling good about where you're at as a team.
You go find a defenseman. The forward doesn't matter as much. To me, if you're the Blues, you're like, hey, our forwards have been good. We just got to hope that they stay consistent. To me, you add to a defensive side of thing, and you just got to find a top 4. Whether it's a right side, I think you have to go right because you've got so many lefties, but Leddy can play on the right side. Broberg can play on the right side. I think you just have to get somebody who can play in your top 4 and eat about 16 to 18 minutes a night.
All right, last thing on this, the updates before we get to a few quick hitter style Ask Us Anything questions. 314. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and continue this on the other side. It'll be an easier way to go about this. A little bit of news to pass along for you, I guess, with Brady Tkachuk. We'll talk about that on the other side and get to a few of your questions as well coming up next here on BK and Ferrario.
Jamie Rivers back with you here, and it's time for another jersey giveaway. This one is awesome. Justin Falk home jersey. Beautiful to add to your collection. You're absolutely going to love it. And all you have to do to get entered to win this autographed jersey is go to 101ESPN.com or visit 101, the mobile app powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
If you're in the market for a new home or even thinking about it, will you
Rawlings, the #1 baseball brand worldwide and the glove of choice for St. Louis Cardinals Nolan Arenado, Brendan Donovan, and Wilson Contreras, has officially opened the Rawlings Experience in St. Louis. It's home since 1887. The Rawlings Experience features the iconic brand's full line of ball gloves, bats, protective gear, apparel, and more. Visitors can experience the past, present, and future of gloves in the Rawlings Glove Vault. Design their very own custom glove like the pros, or take cuts in the Rawlings Hit Lab with the latest high-performance bats. Be sure to visit the brand new Rawlings Experience at Westport Plaza.
Men, trouble in the bedroom? Not anymore.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return.
This is Alexander Texier, and today is Blues Game Day on 101 ESPN.
Blues Game Day is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings, the ultimate arena for wings and wins. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Shortchange the text line or the graveyard chat over on YouTube. YouTube.com/101ESPN-STL. We've got about 200 people watching over there. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. We do Ask Us Anything on Fridays. And I was about to give you guys like 2 minutes of questions for Ask Us Anything.
Unbelievable.
Totally unfair to you. So we'll get to your questions here in just a moment. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Do want to pass this along first, though, and I think that people will understand why I'm doing this first. The Islanders beat reporter was at Brady Tkachuk's media availability just a little bit ago, Alex, after they had traded Josh Norris earlier today for Dylan Cousins. It's a bigger deal than that, but that was the main pieces that were in it. He said Brady Tkachuk could barely get through his press conference while talking about his former teammate and good friend Josh Norris, who was just moved to Buffalo for Dylan Cousins.
They're trying to do everything possible, and I'm not just talking about the Senators. I'm talking about Ottawa in general. They're trying to do everything possible to force Brady Tkachuk to request a trade. I mean, and I know it's not for anything. As BK likes to say, I'm not trying to get political here, but They showed Brady Tkachuk's face during one of the U.S. anthems at an Ottawa game, and he was getting booed, and he was very frustrated with it. And now you got the Josh Norris. You guys remember when Paul Stastny was traded away? And Alexander Steen had a long conversation with Doug Armstrong that offseason because Steen was ready to ask for a trade because they traded away Paul Stastny 1 point out of the playoffs. He was frustrated because that was his buddy. And Doug told him, stick with us. We've got a long-term plan in place. I don't know how much you can sit to tell Brady Tkachuk to stick with us. So if that team misses the playoffs, which is still within the possibility, they're in the bottom wild card spot, and the Rangers are tied with them in points. It's going to be more and more likely. I always go back to what Julian McKenzie told me of The Athletic, who covers the Senators, when I had him on for our pregame show. He said the Tkachuk noise will never go away because the Tkachuk boys want to win the playoffs. And unless the Ottawa Senators get in, they're always going to want out.
The beat writer for the Islanders then quote tweeted his own tweet and said, he's such a leader. Before TSN cut back to more trade coverage, Tkachuk ended his press conference by apologizing for his initial reaction because he doesn't want Cousins or Gilbert to feel like they aren't important to what Ottawa is trying to do. He knows that they absolutely are. So that's your update on Brady Tkachuk. Sure sounds like he's not thrilled about what's going on in Ottawa. Who could blame him? It's been a rough spot for them, and they just traded away one of his good friends and a really good player for a guy with upside. We'll see what ends up happening there. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. From the 314, guys, which city will BK move to whenever we run his ass out of town?
Alaska.
Wow.
As far away as possible.
As far away as possible.
I'm going to Greenland.
You can't even touch.
Unbelievable.
We're not getting political here, man.
Trade deadline day, really?
Yeah, come on, man. Stop trying to down the whole show as always.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Guys, what do you think about the Blues trading for Byram Power or Carlo today to add to their blue line?
You're not getting Owen Power. Owen Power is going to be way too expensive. Buffalo's not moving off of Owen Power. If Byram is available, I would be interested in it. I don't know if you're going to have the pieces that can get it done. I think I would be looking at a Brandon Carlo. I would be looking at a Brant Clark, and I would be looking at a Jamie Alexiak. Those would be the three guys that I would kind of be targeting if I'm looking for an upgrade in my top four.
From the 319, guys, with the salary cap increasing, could the Blues play in the $10+ million per year player in free agency? They could. It's a matter if they want to.
Yeah, I think they have, according to Puckpedia, they have $9 million available to them next offseason. The only RFA they have to sign is Hofer, but the expectation, of course, is you're trying to get out of one or two of the big defensive contracts, and Torrey Krug wouldn't be on the team. It would be LTIR again, which would open up $6.5 million. So, yeah, you could. I don't know if you're going to be in the position to do that yet. It might be 2 years from now when you get into that market.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, go ahead and get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line. From Marsh's Burner, hope that Torp Kiley is ready to suit up and play some D since he would do this, or since that's what he did to this team.
You going to be Big D or Big C out there?
I'm going to be on IR.
You're going to be Lil B.
Yeah, that's
it'd be Broken B.
Not good. Not good is what it was. From the 314 guys, Stephen A. Smith just signed a $100 million contract with ESPN. What do you make of that?
Good God. Well, I mean,
he sets the bar for my market. Let me tell you.
Yeah, I was going to say. I guess I know what my negotiation tactic is.
Everybody hates Stephen A., and I get it. He's not a likable guy, and he is the face of the brand of sports analysis that I think people at least say they dislike, even though it garners more eyes than anything else in our industry. There's a reason why he signed for $100 million. Whether you like him or hate him, he brings eyeballs to ESPN. When he is on the screen, people watch. And he's really, really good at what he does, even if you hate what he does, and I get it if you do. So that's something that I find to be really interesting about the direction of where our industry is going. People say they hate it, and yet they watch it. And again, not to trend over into the political side of things. Honestly, it draws so many eyeballs, and there are people that are fascinated by what's coming next. And that is where a lot of this stuff is trending. So I don't know what that means. For people that do stuff the way that we do, and I know some people will call me a hot take artist, and that's fine. You can feel however you do about this show. That's not how we build the show, though. We like to have informed conversations that will entertain or engage you as an audience and hopefully educate a little bit here or there. And our show is very much not built on the hot take artist stuff. Does that work in 2025? Is that the right way to go about this? I don't know. The easier way to do it, the easier way to get eyeballs is what Stephen A. Smith does. So I've got a lot of thoughts on this. We could talk about it for the next 6 hours, but the fact that he got $100 million is representative of where our industry is going. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but it's the reality.
People watch them. So, I mean, it makes sense you're going to get that. When people are watching, you pay those guys. A couple of updates for you. The first-round pick that the Maple Leafs are giving up for Lawton is a 2027 first-round pick that is top 10 protected.
Dude,
if
that was the deal that was on the table, I'm actually shocked that they ever considered Braden Shen.
Yeah, especially when the price from Doug Armstrong is like mammoth, as Dreger was talking about.
All right, I've got the return on the Rantanen deal.
I was just going to bring that one up as well.
Tim Kalishaw, who's been a longtime writer for the Dallas Morning News, just tweeted out, I'm hearing the Stars are getting Rantanen for Stankoven and 2 firsts, but take that as more of a framework than an official report. Expect it to be something like that. Good for both if so. So if we're getting to this point, we thought that the Rantanen deal was likely, but it has been reported all morning long. This thing is not done. They think that there is an 8-year, $12 million per year contract in place for Rantanen, and then it's about, okay, let's completely finish this thing because they've been close to the finish line with everything else. What do you think of that return, Alex? Stankoven and 2 first-round picks for Rantanen on an 8-year deal.
So on paper, it's not a good return if you're Carolina because you got a middle 6 winger back in Stankoven and 2 first-round picks. That is not the equivalent of basically Martin Necas and Mikko Rantanen. But I kind of tinfoiled it, and somebody brought it up on Twitter too. I really wonder if now one of those first-round picks gets traded to Vancouver for Brock Besser. And so if you're Carolina, you get rid of Rantanen, you bring in Brock Besser, and take your shot at re-signing him since Rantanen wasn't willing to re-sign there. So I was in the camp of you should have never traded away Mikko Rantanen, Carolina. You should have kept him. You laid in that bed by giving up Martin Necas, you go win a cup or try and win a cup. And if he does not want to re-sign there, then so be it. But you made the trade to go be a cup contender. Now you're further away from being a cup contender, even if you trade for Brock Besser. So I know we praised the Carolina Hurricanes GM for being aggressive. Unfortunately, I think he was a little too aggressive, and you made a pretty big mistake for your team.
That's where I come out on this one. To me, when you look at that return, as of now, it looks underwhelming for them. I would have just kept Rantanen if I were them. I understand he's a rental, but you laid your bet in this move. You gave up Martin Necas, a very good young player, to Colorado to go get him to try and win a cup, and now you're just going to flip him because he wasn't going to sign a contract, which, by the way, Carolina, they don't do this very often.
No.
Right? They did that with Gensel last season where they brought him in to try and win a cup. They knew, I think, internally, hey, we're probably not re-signing this guy.
They wanted to, but they're very stern in where they set their limits, and they're unwilling to budge on those.
You traded a point-per-game player, top 6 point-per-game player in Martin Necas, for a potential 50-goal scorer, is a 50-goal scorer, and Mikko Rantanen, and you just traded Mikko Rantanen for a guy who has 29 points in 59 games and is a +2. Tell me how that team improved.
The only way you could convince yourself of it is if they end up taking part of this deal and end up acquiring Brock Besser.
I really wonder if all of it just goes to Vancouver. You send them Stankoven, the first-round pick.
I wonder if it's Stankoven and a first-round pick.
Probably.
And you get a first-round pick and Brock Besser in return for Martin Necas.
We've talked about Brock Besser, like 40 goals last year was incredible, but other than that, you're typically a 25-goal scorer. And you had a point-per-game player in your top 6 in Martin Necas.
And younger.
Yep.
As well.
And under control for 2 more years.
I don't know how much Martin Necas wanted to be there.
It felt like he changed his mind a little bit, though, this season for how he was playing. And I mean, they had a 2-year deal with him. So, like, for the next 2 years.
Well, this year and next.
Oh, I thought it was 2 years after this year.
I'll have to check, but I think it was 2 years.
But regardless, you had him, and you could have reapproached this in the offseason, you know?
It was a 2-year deal, so this year and next. He was under contract through the end of next season.
And you could have traded Necas in the offseason to go get a Rantanen or a Marner before they hit free agency. Me personally, if Carolina doesn't get to the Stanley Cup final this year, you screwed the pooch on that trade.
He's Alex Esteban. I'm BK. We've got Bradford Bruns back in the studio for us today as we are broadcasting live at the ENB Grande Studios out of the Centene Community Ice Center. Coming up next, we just gave you a lot on what's going on across the NHL, whether it's the Rantanen deal, updates from elsewhere. Luke Schenn is going to Winnipeg for a second and a fourth-round pick. Brandon Tanev is also heading to Winnipeg for a second-round pick in 2027. And then Mikko Rantanen, it sounds like, will likely end up with the Dallas Stars with an 8-year contract extension worth $12 million AAV. What does all of this mean for the Blues? Where does it set the prices for them as they try to balance out with the team that they've been and the team that they're trying to become without Colton Parayko? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN.
It's time for another moment in Blues history.
On this day back in 2016, the Blues would take down the Blackhawks 3-2 after a 7-round shootout. Chicago would score first. Backus and Brouwer would score early in the third period, both on the power play to take the lead. But Artemi Panarin would score before the end of this one to force overtime. And in overtime, the Blues would stop 2 shots from Chicago, and Kevin Shattenkirk, Patrick Berglund, and Troy Brouwer were the heroes in shootout.
This date in Blues history was powered by Classic Air Care, making people comfortable since 1926. For all your HVAC needs, ClassicAirCare.com.
Hair Volume is the best-selling hair tablet in the world. .101 ESPN is your home for Blues hockey. Check out either the 101 mobile app or 101ESPN.com for your chance to win a signed puck autographed by Blues center Oscar Sundqvist. Get entered to win that Oscar Sundqvist signed puck right now, either at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app. Powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. ENB Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
The mentality of the team is there's a strong level of belief of what we can do as a group. And losing a tremendous player, person, leader on our team like Parayko is hard, but it's a lot easier right now than it would have been a month ago when our team is really committed to playing for each other. You can just see the way the joy they're having on the ice, the smiles, competing hard for each other. And the mentality is we got a great veteran decor, and they're going to absorb his minutes, and they're going to lead us, and we're just going to march on.
That was Jim Montgomery yesterday on the Fast Lane. A really good conversation with the coach just a little while after the team announced that Colton Parayko was going to be out for at least the next 6 weeks. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So how do you balance, Alex, what the team has been with Colton Parayko, which is one of the best in the NHL, really maybe the best team in the NHL since the Four Nations face-off. They've looked amazing. With what they're likely to be without Colton Parayko, because that's what Doug Armstrong is going to have to do over the next almost 2 hours leading into this year's NHL trade deadline. As you look at where you were, where you're trying to get to, and now what the path looks like for you to get there, sans one of your, conservatively speaking, 3 best players on the roster. How do you view that? How do you try to accomplish all of those goals?
It's tough because, first of all, you're already segmenting the season from the Four Nations tournament pre and Four Nations tournament post. And then you're going into this saying, like, okay, how do we view this with this roster, with Parayko and without Parayko? And I think what Jim Montgomery is probably the starting point. Like Doug Armstrong's talking to Jim Montgomery prior to today's deadline saying, where's this team at? How are they? Are they connected? Because what Jim Montgomery is saying is kind of why I'm wondering if this team can continue to play some consistent hockey. Because when you have that buy-in to a specific style, it's never about one guy on the ice. Yes, having Colton Parayko on the ice is a difference maker, but it's never just about having him out there. It's about the 4 other guys making sure that mistakes don't take place. And so you're weighing how committed is this team? Is this a, hey, we don't want anybody to be traded away, so we're playing really hard and then we'll fall off once the deadline is passed? Or is this a, hey, we're invested for the postseason? And none of us are going to know this other than the players, the coaches, and Doug Armstrong. Yep. But if you're him, I also have to weigh the possibility of completely deterring this entire group of players, because I know it doesn't seem like much. You have to be cold-blooded in all of this, but you also have a group of players that has lost confidence so much over these last few years of being an up team, being a down team, up and down. Now you've got a coach in place who is established with the system he wants to play. You've got a core group of players who are going to be here for the long haul in terms of Thomas and Booch and Cairo and all these guys. You have to weigh the variables of doing what's best for the organization and ripping the rug out from under these guys and losing them completely for the final 20-plus games. Because when you do, Joey always tells us this, man, you cannot get the stink of losing out of a locker room. And if you lose another year where you're picking top 10, that is a detrimental thing for the future of the Blues, compared to you lose Colton Parayko, but this team is invested and at least pushes their way to a playoff spot down the stretch.
The way that I would have approached it, and that's all I can speak on. I don't know what Army's going to do. Army has a very tight circle, and he doesn't share his ideas of what he's planning to do with us, unfortunately. We'd love to hear it, but it's just not the reality of how this thing goes.
I'd love to as well.
The way that I would have approached this after I heard about the injury news to Colton Parayko is my first call would have gone to Braden Shin. I'd have said, Shin, what do you want to do? If you want to be here, if your plan is to be here for the long haul and you don't want to go elsewhere, we won't explore anything for you elsewhere. But because you got to think about it from his perspective too. If you're Shin, suddenly you were believing this team can really contend again. There's no reason at that point for me to even explore the idea of going elsewhere. But when you see this Parayko news, it changes things, man. It's hard to ignore how important that piece is, both inside of the locker room and, more importantly, what he does for them on the ice. So you call him, find out where you at given this injury. And if Shin tells you, I want to be here, then I think you try to add. Because there's nothing else on this team that's going to get you the type of assets that really matter. Trading Suter will get you a late-round pick. Trading Fox, a late-round pick. That's not stuff that really changes anything in a meaningful way, and it makes you quite a bit worse because you just lack depth at that point in time. If he tells you I would like to go elsewhere because I don't know how this team can contend without Parayko on the blue line for us, then you, in my opinion, you have to explore it. But based on what's been reported now by Bob McKenzie on TSN, who said that the Leafs really wanted Braden Shin, but Shin did not want to waive his no-trade clause, so they pivoted to Scott Laughton. It seems like the answer the Blues got to that question was, I want to be here. I believe in what we're building. I think we can still make the playoffs. And if you're in Doug Armstrong's shoes, I would then pivot to saying, okay, then our goal has been since the beginning of the year to make the playoffs this year. How do we accomplish that goal? It is my opinion that they cannot do so without Colton Parayko or adding from the outside. I think you now have to pivot and say, we are using an asset to go get something meaningful, to improve our blue line. So to get to the playoffs, that guy helps us get there with the loss of Parayko. And to potentially get through the playoffs, and certainly next year to get back to the playoffs, this is a guy that can help us with Parayko to fortify our top four defensively. Now we've got Fowler, Parayko, Broberg, and insert player that we acquire at the deadline here. That's a really good potential top four defensively. You don't have somebody else that's coming through your pipeline that's knocking on the door the way that you do with Dvorsky or Snuggerud in your forward group. So I think that's what they should do. I think they should be working the phones between now and 2 o'clock, trying to look for the best deal possible to improve that top four defensively. For me, that player would be Brandon Carlo with the Boston Bruins. They're clearly dismantling this thing. They understand now more than they have before. It's just not working for us. We don't have the pieces here. We're not going to be a playoff team, and it's going to take a while, and it's going to take some hurt before we can get back there. Earlier today, in his piece, JR connected them to Luke Shin, who has since been traded to Winnipeg, and he connected them, or he said they have been connected by others, to Bowen Byram with the Buffalo Sabres. Yeah. So that would be my course of action here. I would be looking to improve them defensively. Brandon Carlo would be the type of player that I'd be looking to acquire.
You've got to continue to push. I mean, I know you look at it and you say we lost Colton Parayko. How are we supposed to compete? And I totally understand, but Colton Parayko is not the same as Jordan Binnington. Colton Parayko is out there with 4 other guys that can determine how a team can create offense. Jordan Binnington is the final guy to keep the puck out of the net. And if this was Jordan Binnington, I might be singing a different tune right now. But because you've lost Colton Parayko, I don't think you can change the mindset. If a team is invested and it's a group of younger guys that are going to be here for the next 5+ years, man, you've got to get them that taste of the playoffs. And also, I'm sure ownership is thinking the same thing. We've done a lot over these last few years, and we've missed the playoffs. We can't do this again. So there's no selling. There's no bringing in a ton of assets and draft picks and prospects. That doesn't matter to us. What matters is a playoff race. What matters is butts in the seats at Enterprise Center when they've got 10 home games for the rest of the season. And how do you do that? You keep that spark alive. And to keep the spark alive, you go find a defenseman. They didn't need to add at this deadline. We talked yesterday how, you know what, it would make sense if you just stood pat. Because there's nothing out there to give all of those assets up. Yes, prior to the news. So if we were content with their forwards and we were content with their defensemen, content with their goaltending, well, now you look at this and you say, we've got to replace Parayko. You can't replace Parayko. Can Broberg be 75% of that? I think so. So now you got to go find another top 4 defenseman. I think Byram. I think Brandon Carlo's that. I think Brant Clark has been in the rumors with the LA Kings. I think you can call up the Seattle Kraken and ask about Jamie Alexiak. I think you call up the Islanders and ask about Noah Dobson. I would be calling every single team. The hard part for Army right now is teams know he's desperate. And when the team smells your desperation, they ask for more. But you're kind of in a position right now, if you're bettering your team beyond this year with this trade, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world.
And you mentioned the part that is going to add to this because, like, they weren't desperate going into the deadline before the Parayko injury. I mean, there was probably a sense of, I don't know if urgency is the right word, but there definitely was the sense of, hey, ownership wants this team to be in the playoffs. We believe this is a playoff team, so maybe they do go out and they do spend a little bit more than we were expecting. But now you're on top of this Parayko injury. You are desperate looking for that guy, and there might still be that urgency of, hey, we should be a playoff team this season, even without the Parayko injury. I'll be fascinated to know because I wouldn't be shocked if Army would buy. I actually don't even think it's the worst thing in the world if they decide to hold and just stand pat at the deadline. But I think he's going to add. My question is going to be, is he going to be desperate enough to move on from something significant like his first-round pick? Or will he go the Alexiak route, which you had brought up? That one you probably don't need to give up your first-round pick. That's probably a lower-level prospect. Maybe you throw in a third-round pick that you got in next year's draft.
Right.
I'll be curious to know how far he's willing to swing because typically Army's pretty calculated, and I think he knows what we've been saying. Hey, Brandon Carlo, makes sense. Probably an overpay to give up that first-round pick to go get him. that's where it's going to be interesting to see if Army says, you know what, I'm drawing the line. We are not trading this year's first-round pick. Though we are desperate, we are not going to do something that puts us in a bind.
And Army does not overpay. Like, look at the past history of his trades. He does not overpay for something like Edmonton just did for Jake Wallman.
Not to that degree. I would say a second-round pick for Nick Leddy was maybe a bit of an overpay, but it was a fine deal. It was a second-round pick, though, for half of the season of Nick Leddy, and there was no term remaining on his deal. I would say relative to his performance, that was a bit of an overpay, but it was worth it because he ended up fitting in really well. Like, there was no problem with the deal. I would say a first-round pick for a player with multiple years of term remaining that is at the level of Nick Leddy would be a more than fair trade. That would be a reasonable acquisition price. I want to go through, Alex. Let's go through on the other side. The players that play defense that are currently on the Athletics trade board that have not yet been dealt. We'll go through some of those names. I want to get Alex's thoughts on these because we haven't spent a lot of time on them, honestly, prior to today because they had Colton Parayko prior to today. So we'll get to that on the other side, and you'll hear from Jim Montgomery what he had to say yesterday on how they're going to put together these defensive pairings and why they're going about it that way. It's all next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN has your chance to win a pair of tickets to see your St. Louis Blues take on the Vancouver Canucks on March 20th at Enterprise Center. The first 12,000 fans to enter the arena that night will receive a mystery Blues hat, courtesy of Ticketmaster, with 3 different designs available. Get more details and get entered to win that free pair of tickets for Blues vs. Canucks on March 20th and the mystery hat giveaway right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
No wheeling and dealing for the note as of yet. I'm Bradford Bruns, and this Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. This morning, the Blues recalled D-man Matthew Kessel from Springfield, but they haven't executed a trade to this point. The NHL deadline looming at 2 o'clock Central. 30 minutes later, GM and President of Hockey Operations Doug Armstrong will hold a press conference. The Fastlane Carey said presser live. Yesterday's marquee moves around the league. Edmonton adds former Blue Jake Wallman to its blue line. Central rival Colorado lands Brack Nelson from the Islanders. On ice action tonight, St. Louis and Anaheim will drop that puck at 9 right here on 101 ESPN. Several hours beforehand, the Cardinals square off against Houston spring training style. First pitch at 5:05. This SportsCenter update has been brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. So let's go through this, because as of this time yesterday, we didn't have any reason to consider most of the defensemen that were available. We talked about Bo Byram. We had mentioned him as a possibility, and that's because he's just a really good young player with term remaining on his contract. But it was more shooting for the moon than it was, hey, you need somebody to go stabilize your top four defensively, because we felt like the top four has been pretty good defensively for the Blues. Things have changed. Colton Parayko out for the next 6 weeks. That's when he's going to be reevaluated. And so now, if the Blues wants to push for this thing, it feels, at least to me, as though they need to make a move for some kind of defenseman. So what are the options that are out there? I just went through, Alex, and wrote down all of the defensemen that are available on the Athletics updated trade list that have not yet been dealt. I want to go through these one by one with you, and you tell me if you're interested or not in these players, okay? Setting aside the cost acquisition first, we'll see what ends up coming with that.
So just solely off of what does this player make sense for the Blues?
Do they make sense for the Blues or not? The first one is Bo Byram. We've talked about him. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it. He's 23 years old. He is a left-handed defenseman. He can play on the right, but he is a left-handed defenseman, and he's an RFA after the season. Do you believe that he makes sense for the Blues?
Man, the more I think about it, I'm just not sure. I like him. I think it makes sense. But he's offhand, you're already left heavy, and he's an offensive-minded defenseman. And I do feel like you've got plenty of those guys. I just think you might need a little bit more size and stinginess. So I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I'm not like going hard after Bo Byram.
The next one, I've seen this guy brought up on our text line a decent amount. Rasmus Ristolainen. He's a right-handed defenseman. He's 30 years old. He has 2 years left on his contract after this season. So 2 more years of term at roughly $5 million per year on that contract. Is he somebody that makes sense to you? No. He's with Philadelphia right now. They're clearly selling off.
No. You know what Rasmus Ristolainen is to me? He's Nikita Zadorov. He's overpaid third-pair defenseman who's physical. That to me is not the type of defenseman you need in your top four.
So the next one up is Mario Ferraro. He's also a left-handed defenseman. We've talked about this guy before in the past. He's 26 years old. He has 1 year left on his contract after this season at $3 million. Is Mario Ferraro somebody that you would be interested in?
And I like this one, but again, it's the left side, and it's
going to be a theme on the players that I'm about to mention to you.
Because right-handed defensemen do not get traded very often. They're a tight commodity. I think I would be interested in this because he can play his offside. Is it the greatest? Probably not. But you've got guys who can play their offhand, and then Mario Ferraro could be a top four left-handed. So, yes, I would be interested in this one.
All right, next one up is Matt Grzelcyk. We've talked about him in the past as well.
Move on.
Left-handed defenseman, 31 years old. He's a pending UFA.
No, move on.
Okay. The next one up is somebody that I think you might be a little bit more interested in, given what our conversations have been about him in the past. This is a gentleman that goes by the nickname Mongoon.
Oh, baby.
Jamie Alexiak is indeed on the Athletics trade list. However, he is also a left-handed defenseman. He is 32 years old right now. He does have a little bit of term remaining on his deal as well. 1 more season at $4.6 million cap hit. If you were out on Rasmus Ristolainen, I would assume you are also out on Jamie Alexiak.
No, you would be assuming wrong, sir. I am in on Jamie Alexiak. He can play the right side, and he's also got familiarity with Jim Montgomery. So, yes, I would be in on this one. I think this does make more sense in your top four. He can play top four. His numbers aren't the greatest right now with Seattle, but he's more of a mobile puck-moving defenseman than what Rasmus Ristolainen is.
All right, we continue along here. There are 2 more names on this list of defensemen from the Athletics trade board that are still available as of right now. David Savard is the next one up. He is a right-handed defenseman. He is 34 years old. If you want to add a little more experience, the Blues have a lot of it. This guy certainly has some as well. $3.5 million this year. He's a UFA after the season.
No, not this one.
Okay.
This one's a third-pair defenseman.
And the last one on this list is Brandon Carlo, who we spent most of the day talking about. From my perspective, is he somebody that you're interested in? Right-handed defenseman, 28 years old with another year of control.
No.
You're not interested in Brandon Carlo?
Oh, sorry. Yes, Brandon Carlo. I was looking at a picture of the previous one that you just brought up. Yeah, no, Brandon Carlo, I would be interested in this.
$4.1 million AAV. He has 2 years remaining of term on that deal. So the guys that you're interested in, according to what you just said, Mario Ferraro, Jamie Alexiak, Brandon Carlo, are any of those guys players that stand out to you above the rest? Alexiak, Ferraro, or Carlo?
I think it would be Carlo number 1 because he's a right side defenseman. It would be Alexiak number 2.
And then Ferraro 3.
And then Ferraro 3. And honestly, I would put Brant Clark in over Ferraro. And I know he's not on that list, but I think it was the fourth period that reported that the Kings are at least listening on him. He'd be another one that I would put into that in front of Mario Ferraro. Ferraro's a good one, but the cost you're going to have to pay and how you fit him on your team next year with another lefty is a little concerning. More so to where Alexiak's only got 1 year left on his deal. Not that expensive. And he can play the right side. It's not unnatural to him.
And how much does that change if I said Carlo requires a first-round pick to be acquired in a trade?
I think Alexiak's probably going to acquire a first-round pick, really? And I guarantee Brant Clark would and Mario Ferraro. All of those guys are going to require a first-round pick.
I don't think Ferraro would.
Oh, I do. Term at $3.2 million. I think and he's 26 years old. Yeah, I think he's going to.
Wasn't he just traded recently?
No, he's been on there. They were talks of trading him, but nobody was willing to pay the price that they wanted. And if Jake Wallman just got a first-round pick, Mario Ferraro's definitely getting a first one.
If Wallman wasn't traded for a first-round pick yesterday, I think some of these guys, it may be a little different. For what Alexiak or Ferraro, maybe there's a different conversation. But the moment that bar gets set of, hey, this is the kind of guy that's going for a first-round pick, everybody else gets to move up a peg when that happens.
I think Carlo, a first-round pick, is overpaying. I really do. I think you'd be better off giving up a second round. You don't have that. So what's the equivalent of that? Third round and a prospect. But to get it done, it might require you a first round. And to be honest with you, because he's on your team next year and he's a right-handed defenseman that plays into your top 4 next season, I've been steadfast for the last week of bleep these picks. I don't think the first-round pick matters to you. So if that's what gets it done, I think I would do it.
I think it depends what you want. Because these guys are very different stylistically. The 3 defensemen that you have mentioned that you'd be interested in. Ferraro is very much offensive-minded. If you want somebody that is going to get going with the rush, and you want somebody that can maybe play with Cam Fowler and be more offense-oriented with Fowler, that's probably Ferraro. If you want somebody that's just going to add grit to your lineup, you want the physicality, well, that's clearly Jamie Alexiak. That is his game to a T. If you want somebody that is more of the stay-at-home defenseman and will give you some of, 60%, let's say, of what Parayko was previously, at least on the defensive side of the puck, that's Brandon Carlo. So if you're looking at these 3 defensemen, it really depends on what you value, what you want out of that spot in your lineup defensively right now. And this gets us to the question of how are they going to construct this thing? And Jim Montgomery was on with the Fast Lane yesterday. It was a really good interview. The guys did great with it. Check it out on the podcast page after the show today if you'd like to. And he was asked about the defensive pairings. What are you guys going with and why are you constructing it the way that you are? Here's what he had to say to the Fast Lane yesterday.
As far as Cam Fowler, we're going to move Leddy up to play the right side with him. And I think you're going to see Broberg and Falk absorb more minutes, especially more in a shutdown role. And, we got great leadership. And Ryan Suter back there, and Tucker's going to go back in the lineup, who's playing really good hockey for us. And we just have a lot of experience back there. And I think what is the goal we're trying to accomplish is make the playoffs.
So I love that he added that at the end there, but that's the coach's mentality. That should be where he's looking at this. When I heard that, Alex, my immediate thought was, Broberg is your number 1 defenseman now. Yeah. They're going to flip these pairings. I think you're going to see a little less of Cam Fowler than you did previously. I think he's going to be the de facto number 2 or the second pair defensively. And I think Broberg with Falk is now your top pair defensively, for better or for worse.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, and I don't think that lasts. I think Broberg and Fowler will be together at some point moving forward. since the Four Nations return, Philip Broberg's on-ice even-strength goal differential is 1 point better than what Colton Parayko's was, and they've played 30 seconds less in terms of average time per game. Actually, Broberg and Falk have been the two best even-strength goal differentials on the Blues since the return from Four Nations. So I think you run with it a little bit, but this is why I said at the beginning, I don't think this is a matter of replacing Parayko. I think Broberg can handle that load. I think what you need now is you need to replace another top four defenseman. Is it the perfect scenario? Absolutely not. You want Parayko. But I think Broberg can play 20 minutes a night. Frankly, he's done it 3 of the last 5 games more than Colton Parayko has. He could do it. We know he could provide offense. It's, do you make those same mental mistakes that Parayko doesn't on the ice? And 2, what does the pairing look like? Because it's not just Broberg out there, it's Broberg and Falk out there, which Falk has had his ups and downs this season, which is why I think at some point it will be Broberg and Fowler, and then it will be Leddy and Falk as your top 4.
So if they make a move, what does that mean?
Then that's perfect, because to me, Brandon Carlo plays with Cam Fowler and Broberg plays with Justin Falk, and you keep it as is. And you even out the ice time. It's not so much of having a number 1 pair and a number 2.
It's a 1A, 1B.
It's a 1A, 1B, and you can match them up. Or if you really liked the way Broberg's playing, you put a Carlo or whomever you bring in to play with Broberg, and Falk can go with Cam Fowler.
Yeah, I would just replace the Parayko spot. I would not mess with anything else that you have defensively, because the pairings have been working so well together. I would say whoever you're bringing in is going to be the pairing mate with Cam Fowler, and I think that actually influences a little bit how you're viewing this. I don't know if it should, though. And the reason why is because I think the long-term play for this guy is that he will be paired with Broberg
next year.
Yeah, because you want Cam Fowler with Parayko right now, for the foreseeable future at least, and you're going to have whoever you bring in as the pairing mate for Broberg. And so that's where I think things can get a little dicey. You want somebody that right now fits with Fowler, but long-term fits with Broberg, and that might be 2 different types of players. And so if you bring somebody in, I know that the pairings have worked. I think there's an argument to be made that guy should actually immediately be paired with Broberg and go on that top pair for you for the now.
Yeah.
And then you put Fowler actually with Justin Falk.
And Fowler and Falk are familiar with each other. They've played in the U.S. Olympics, and I think they've played on a couple of world championship teams. But, yeah, I mean, that's where they're at. You're looking at making your team better for now and the next however many years he's here for. And you need size and you need puck mobility. You're not looking to actually replace Colton Parayko because you can't, but you want somebody who is big, who can break up plays like Parayko does and puts bodies in front. And 2, you just need somebody who can easily move the puck out of the zone. Because like Joey talked about with Nick Leddy yesterday, the reason Nick Leddy has looked so good with Suter over Tyler Tucker is because Nick Leddy plays the same as the other 5 defensemen in terms of puck mobility. So, Carlo can be that guy for you. Alexiak can be that guy for you. Absolutely a guy like Brant Clark or Mario Ferraro. But if you're the Blues, you're looking at something that is with term that can fill the spot, like you just mentioned, to go right in there to play with Philip Broberg.
All right, so here's a follow-up question to you guys, because we've been talking about all these players. And I think they're all probably first, second-round pick, like the equivalent of that in terms of the cost that it will take to acquire them, especially for the Blues, who do not have a second- or third-round pick in this upcoming draft and don't have a second-round pick in next year's draft either. If the team came to you and said, you don't have the picks that we're looking for, and the Blues say, hey, we're not giving you a first-round pick in the upcoming draft unless it's protected, and then they come back to you and say, well, that's not what we want either because we want your pick to be unprotected this year, are you willing to talk prospects with them?
Yeah.
And if so, I'm going to go down the top 6 or top 5 prospects for the Blues in their system right now. These are the guys that would probably be the equivalent of what the Blues are going to have to give up. You talking Dvorsky?
Nope.
No.
I'm not either. Snuggerud?
Nope.
No.
Juracek?
Nope. Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah, I would talk that. He's had injuries.
Yeah.
Lindstein?
I would talk it. Yep.
I would.
Stenberg?
I would talk it.
I would.
Yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't Juracek. Juracek's the one that I would differ on Alex.
Steen's not going to like either of those bottom 2.
I know. But this is where things get difficult.
That's true.
Because of the lack of assets that the Blues have to work with right now, you have to start getting creative.
Yep.
So you're either talking first-round pick has to be in play for this year or next, or you're talking about one of Juracek, Lindstein, or Stenberg probably having to be on the move at this year's deadline. 4 players that are probably worse long-term than those guys are in the immediate future, but they're better for the right now. They help you today, which is what the Blues need.
Yeah, I would. for the sake of this team and where they're at, and he plays into it beyond this year, you look at it and you say, if this is what it's going to cost us, do we think this team can make the playoffs? And if we think they can make the playoffs, then you have to pull the trigger.
All right, coming up on the other side, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on with Carolina right now, Alex. It's a big day in the NHL. Normally, we do the junk drawer coming up at 12:45. We're going to skip that for today because I want to stick with what the biggest story is for you guys. Carolina has really done something fascinating over the last few years. They go all in prior to the deadline, and then they either don't re-sign that player or they then flip him prior to the deadline again. I want to talk about that and if it's something that plays for fans or if it would make you frustrated even more if you were a fan of that team. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
The Blues play on ESPN.
Shoots, he scores!
Tonight, Blues and Ducks. Pre-game at 8. Puck drop at 9.
The wait is over!
The quest for the Stanley Cup happens here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN.
Since 1991.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So normally we'd be doing the junk drawer right now. Today we're going to go a different direction. I want to talk a little bit more about the trade deadline. I think that's what you guys are looking for here on BK and Ferrario. We are officially 1 hour away from the NHL's trade deadline. Alex, I wanted to talk a little bit about what Carolina is doing.
Oh, this is kind of the junk drawer then.
Because, yeah, it's definitely trash according to most. They've been getting absolutely destroyed on TSN, Sportsnet. The Canadian programs are really not loving what Carolina has decided to do. Now, they traded for Mikko Rantanen, and when they traded for Mikko Rantanen, everybody was like, oh, my God. They just got one of the best players in the NHL. Mikko Rantanen is a great get for them because they needed a true, proven finisher. That's what they were missing on their roster, but they gave up a lot. They gave up Martin Necas, who's a very good young player. We were talking about him previously. If the Blues decided to trade Jordan Kyrou the last year or two, is he a guy that you look to acquire in return for Kyrou? So he's a big chip to play. Well, they end up trading him for Rantanen. Rantanen comes in for, 3 weeks now of actual on-ice production?
Pretty much.
It has gone poorly. He hasn't fit in as well as they were expecting. It's also in the middle of the Four Nations face-off. There hasn't been a whole lot of runway
Scored
here.
2 goals in 13 games for him.
Yeah, not great. Not what you're looking for from one of the best finishers in the NHL. And they had a decision to make. Do we re-sign him? They tried. They wanted to give him $12 million a year. He said no. Okay, if he's not re-signing, do we keep him for the rest of the way and try to just go for it this year with Mikko Rantanen as a part of the roster, even though it hasn't gone well thus far? Or do we flip him again for assets at the deadline? And that's what they decided to do. He's now going to be a part of the Dallas Stars. Great move, in my opinion, by the Dallas Stars. They give up a couple of first-round picks, a prospect as well who's been playing for them. I think he has 9 goals so far this year, but he's 5'8", and he doesn't finish very well. So that's what the Carolina Hurricanes have in return for that. Now, last year they tried it with Jake Gensel. He didn't re-sign with them either. As a fan, do you like this approach that the Carolina Hurricanes are taking? Because they're trying. I mean, they're going out. And if you want a team to make a big move, it's Vegas, it's Florida, it's Carolina. Those are the 3 teams that are actually willing to put their money where their mouth is. They are unafraid to make that big move. But then they either don't re-sign the guy or they don't re-sign the guy and they then flip him again at the trade deadline. So how do you feel about this approach?
I hate it. I get why they made the trade for Mikko Rantanen, because you don't pass up on a guy who is 50-goal scorer in the National Hockey League. But the Carolina Hurricanes, prior to when they traded Martin Necas, were the 4th best team in the National Hockey League. They were 30-16-4. They had scored 167 goals, which was top 10 in the National Hockey League, and Martin Necas was a point-per-game player. Why in the hell are you trading off of that team when you're playing so well? Because here's the problem, and I know people's response to that is because it's Mikko Rantanen. Mikko Rantanen had no idea Colorado was trading him. Mikko Rantanen was in tears when he was traded away. You know what you're getting in Mikko Rantanen? A
crybaby?
Kind of. A disgruntled, lost puppy. Because he wanted to stay in Colorado. Colorado said, no, we're going to trade you. And he was caught off guard by that. And you expect that guy to be fully invested on a team to help you win a Stanley Cup over a Martin Necas who was playing like a guy who could get you to a Stanley Cup final? I understand what Carolina was doing. They're trying to be aggressive, and everyone was like, oh, Eric Tulsky, look at him. He's using all of the analytics side because he's a big stats guy. I don't think you disrupt something that's working well for you, and that's where I think they faltered. It's good for them to get something back in return for Martin Necas, or for Mikko Rantanen. You got 2 firsts and a Logan Stankoven, who's a good player, but those don't win the Stanley Cup for you. From what you were when you had Martin Necas to what you are now, you are less of a team that can get to a Stanley Cup final than on January 25th. So I just think this was stupid if I was a fan.
See, I like what they have done because they know they are in a spot where they should be pushing and burning assets to try and go win a cup. I really loved what they did last year with the Gensel one. And even if you don't re-sign that guy, I still think it's the right order of operations. Now, where I think they went wrong here was, first off, I think if you trade for Rantanen, I get the whole, hey, he didn't want to really leave Colorado. Dude, you're an NHL player. Hey, we're acquiring you because we think you are the guy that is better than Natchez that can help us win a cup. So he needs to get over that and become the player they acquired. I don't like the order of operations now, which is, oh, he's not re-signing, let's panic and trade him. Now, maybe that changes. Like if they go out and they use some of these assets that they've gotten in this Rantanen deal and they go out and trade for, Besser from Vancouver. Okay, now there's a little bit more of, okay, you pivoted away, you brought in Besser, maybe you try and re-sign him. Then I'll be more on board of their play today. But to me, you laid your bet in and said, dude, Rantanen's a guy that's better than Natchez at this point in his career. It's worth acquiring him, thinking he's the guy that can get us over the top. And whether we re-sign him or not, it is totally worth us pushing. I would love it if I were a fan of the Carolina Hurricanes and they went about it that way. They were being aggressive.
I would as well. It'd be the approach that I would prefer. We can't sit here and praise the Florida Panthers for coming off of a season in which they had 100 points and they had some of the top point producers in the NHL and traded them away to try to get better with Matthew Tkachuk, and then disapprove of the team that's trying to do it the same way. Players don't want to resign there. Now, some of it is because they're not willing to shell out all of the money for Mikko Rantanen or Jake Gensel. That's totally part of it. It's worth noting. Dallas and Florida have a bit of an advantage in this regard when it comes to the no-state income taxes. So the money goes further in Florida and Dallas than it does in Carolina. A little bit of news to pass along. Mikko Rantanen in Dallas is going to get an 8-year deal worth $12 million per year. He also got a full no-movement clause. That is according to Darren Dreger. No surprise there. When you get that kind of a deal, that's typically just something that comes along with it. But the other piece of news that comes along with this from Dreger, there are also rumblings of an extension with Wyatt Johnston in Dallas as well.
We'll probably give him 8x8, lock him up long term because that's their future number one center once Sagan's gone.
And another trade has been made. Charlie Coyle has been traded to Colorado.
He's from Boston, so Boston's selling everything.
That is
right
according
now.
to Fluto Shinzawa, who we've had on this show before. He is the beat writer for the Boston Bruins. So Charlie Coyle is going to Colorado.
Casey Middlestat's going the other way.
Middlestat is going the other way in that deal.
So they're getting a younger center for Charlie Coyle.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Charlie Coyle's a good player.
They're trading pieces. You should be calling Boston right now and saying, well, what do we need to get for Brandon Carlo? Carlo was skating on their line rushes today. He was their top right-handed defenseman. Call him.
What's the ask? What do you think they want from you?
I think it's either a first-round pick with the conditions attached to it, or it's going to be 2026 third round and one of those prospects you talked about. I mean, Casey Middlestat helps them now, but the trade that they made for that Justin Brazeau or something that they traded last night with Minnesota, those are a couple of younger players. Like they're looking to retool. They're looking to do the same thing that you've been looking to do, get younger guys who can come in and help your team faster. So I don't know if the first-round pick helps them. If you're Boston, a first-round pick can be trade equity at the draft, but it's Brandon Carlo who's got 1 year after this, and you're not probably re-signing him.
I'm going to ask this question, and I don't. Does Tyler Tucker have value in trades?
No, I don't think so.
I didn't think so, but I was just making sure.
Real quick, another update on what's going in this trade. It sounds like Middlestat, Zellers, and a second are going back to Boston.
Okay.
According to Anthony DeMarco.
Zellers, if I'm not mistaken, is one of their. He was a third-round pick in last year's draft. So basically, they got the
second.
Yeah, they got a second-round pick in return as well to the Boston Bruins.
This is bigger than just Charlie Coyle.
What do you mean?
There's got to be more going to Colorado.
No.
If you get Casey Middlestat, a second and a prospect.
It's a low-level prospect, the second pick and Middlestat. I mean, Middlestat's not highly viewed around the league right now. Middlestat's
I think that
viewed.
just helps them offset money as well.
Yeah, Middlestat's viewed as a third-line center. I mean, he's been playing with Colorado. That's why when people brought up Casey Middlestat to the Blues, it's like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, that's not making you any better. So, to me, this is Boston's taking a shot in the dark on a young centerman. They get a third-round prospect in return and a second-round pick. I don't think it's that much. Charlie Coyle is maybe a little bit of an overpay, but Charlie Coyle and Casey Middlestat are probably a wash, and then Boston's getting a little bit more. Probably some salary retained, I would imagine.
Man, that Casey Middlestat trade did not work out for Colorado.
No, it did not. Bo Byram's probably going to get you a hell of a return, too.
That is, for all of the things that Buffalo has done, that has been just horrible over the last, 20 years?
Yeah.
They've made some really dumb moves.
Way to go, Buffalo. You got one.
That was a hell of a move for them last year.
You got one, Buffalo.
To get Bo Byram. All right, he's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Those are the latest when it comes to the NHL's trade deadline. If anything is out there, whether it's just a rumor or a report on on the Blues, we will certainly be passing that along to you. I think the biggest thing right now, Boston is in full-blown sell mode, and if I'm Doug Armstrong, I would try to be on the phone with them as much as I possibly can until they tell me officially no when it comes to Brandon Carter.
Boston, Seattle, and San Jose are in full sell mode right now. And no coincidence, those are three teams that have defensemen.
I forgot to bring this up. The other move that was made was San Jose. They have officially traded
Luke
St. Louis and Luke Cunnin. People, by the way, the numbers nerds, not fans of Luke Cunnin.
I saw that Jay Fresh card, and I was like, whoa. I can't believe we were talking about him yesterday.
Yeah, those are the three teams that are selling everything, and no coincidence. Ferraro, Alexiak, and Brandon Carlo are on those teams.
Now, I wanted this to be clear. I said the other day I would be interested in Luke Cunnin. So this is not my words, but this comes from a numbers nerd on Twitter. Luke Cunnin gets traded to Columbus. Can't defend this one at all. I feel for Columbus fans. This guy is not an HL caliber. Whatever the return is, it's too much. And Mike Greer did well to move him off of the roster. Whew.
Good God.
So yeah, Luke Cunnin has some.
I think he'll be okay. I think he'll be okay, guys.
Quote, future considerations.
He's going to be a fourth line center.
This is a quote from a numbers nerd. Future considerations would be an overpay for Luke Cunnin.
Okay, that is unnecessary. That guy needs to chill a little bit.
That's ridiculous.
That's a tone problem.
That dude needs to chill a little bit.
All right, in 15 minutes, we'll get into our NHL trade deadline roundup. But coming up next, we got to continue our countdown of the 20 most important players with number 16 on the list. I think you're going to like him. Next here on 101 ESPN.
Do you have what it takes to beat the Blues? Tune into BK and Ferrario every Monday for your shot to take on a member of your St. Louis Blues in a contest. And you could score a signed puck and tickets to an upcoming Blues game. It's BK and Ferrario's Beat the Blues giveaway every Monday on 101 ESPN. WXOS, WXOS HD1 East St. Louis, 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. We want to hear from you. Text us at 314-399-9646 on the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation text line on 101 ESPN. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. The 20 most important Cardinals for the 2025 season. Number 16.
Swing and a drive. Victor Scott has just tied this game. His second home run, and no doubter.
Victor Scott II.
We continue our countdown of the 20 most important Cardinals for the 2025 season with number 16 on our list, and that is indeed Victor Scott II. Alex had him all the way at number 10. T-Bone had him at number 17. I had him at number 14 on my list, and you average it out based on where we had everybody else. He ends up at number 16 on our show's list of the 20 most important Cardinals. Alex, to me, Victor Scott has to be the future of center field for this organization. I don't think you have anybody else currently in the organization, at least, that profiles to be that player for you. Newbar, T-Bone mentioned it yesterday during the game. It's to make in center field that the inning kind of snowballed on you because of his lack of range. He's not a true center fielder out there defensively. Victor Scott has the potential to be a 260, 270 hitter at the big league level. Something that gets underrated from his minor league career is that he took a lot of walks. He's got a good batter's eye, and he hits for a little more pop than people give him credit for. And then you add in the ability to, steal 40 bags in any given season. It's a hell of a player in center field that you could potentially have with Victor Scott. When you were making your list, Alex, why did you have him so high? You were the highest on him of the group.
Because of the parameters that I put together when looking at this season's importance, and it's yes, you want to compete this year, but it's building for the future. And Victor Scott this year has to showcase the ability to be the center fielder moving forward. And that is going to put this team in a better position. Why it's so important, I think if he has changed his approach from what it was last year, I think you're talking about somebody who can provide a little bit more pop, but you're talking about a guy who consistently can get on base and provides that stolen base impact, which is something that this team doesn't have a whole lot of beyond Mason Wynn. You don't have a lot of speed on base paths, and to have a Victor Scott and a Mason Wynn in the lineup does provide you a little bit, but beyond that, if he can showcase, you already know the defense is there. Siani doesn't play into this team's future, in my opinion. If the bat can be at least 7-8 hole hitter for this roster, and you've got the speed ability, now you can actually get a little crazy with some of these other players and maybe make some moves, trade out a corner outfielder, because you got a lot of them, to find something that fills the spot. Victor Scott plays into a lot of this team's future.
T-Bone?
I think when I made my list, I had him I had lower than all of us on the show because I wasn't sure how he's going to play for this organization this season. Can I be honest? If I were to do my list again today, he'd be higher up because I think he's been that impressive in center field so far this spring training. And I agree with what you guys are saying. He is the future of center field, and it's beneficial for them, though, like right now, if they were to put Newbar in center, it really unlocks everything they want to do with this youth movement. To me, it's still better that they end up with Victor Scott in center field so they can try and get some answers, allow him to develop this year. Now, it's not a make-or-break year for him, which is why he got dragged down on all of our list, I believe. But for me, he is the one that has the upside. And everything that he's doing in spring training right now, for me, says, hey, he should be the center fielder right now on opening day. Now, there's still ways to go, and I'm willing to change my mind on that. But I also look at him and I go, the things he's doing right now are sustainable, right? Ollie had a quote in the paper today about, hey, our offense, it sucks so far in spring training. But right now we're about process. And his process so far has been very good because when he makes contact, it's not little bloopers that get him on base right now. In spring training, he's been crushing the baseball when he makes contact.
Yeah, I loved what he said there. Somebody asked him about the offense so far, and he had 2 words as the answer. He said, don't care. Don't care. Now, that's not going to win over some of the fans who say you should care about the offense. I get all of that.
Fire Ollie's what I'm saying.
I'm in total agreement with Ollie. I just do not care about what they have done thus far in spring training. All right, sounds like our signal is going down a little bit. I apologize for that. So this is probably a sign that we should stop talking Cardinals, talk a little bit more about the Blues. Bradford, if you don't mind, going into break, this has been our spring training report here on BK and Ferrario. We can go ahead and play that open going into the break. And on the other side of that, we're going to be talking about the trade deadline for the Blues, how they should approach it in the next 45 minutes or so here on BK and Ferrario.
We're flying down to Florida for a spring training report on 101 ESPN. Our Redbird Spring Training Report is brought to you by Rawlings. Visit the all-new Rawlings experience at Westport Plaza today. You can now listen to 101 ESPN on demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company. Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios, this is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Normally we do an NHL trade deadline roundup, but to be totally frank with you, everything happened earlier today. There's not a lot happening right now. Like even you said earlier, T-Bone.
Oh, yeah, earlier today on NHL Network Radio, when I was driving in, they went, yeah, so we've wrapped up our 4-hour show and a trade hasn't happened, so we'll talk to you guys on Monday.
Yeah, we didn't do anything.
Over on the Daily Face-Offs live stream, their insider is not even looking at his phone right now. So
yeah, right.
He's got a buzzer.
Yeah, look, every time we check, like we were watching TSN before the show, we've been checking in on the Daily Face-Off coverage. Every time you look, the insider cam is truly the insider staring at his phone. Yeah. There's clearly nothing going on because Saravalli's not looking at it.
There you go. So the one thing that is happening is Cody Glass, a member of Alex's Ferrario 5 from earlier in this week, was traded from Pittsburgh to New Jersey. That is apparently where they pivoted after it sounds like Braden Shen was unavailable. Cody Glass, 25-year-old center, former first-round pick, previously with Nashville, has spent this year with Pittsburgh, 15 points in 51 games. Not a big point producer or anything. Third, fourth-line center, helps you out a little bit. Decent move. Yeah. Well, I haven't seen what the return is on this.
Yeah, I probably not much, but yeah, for the New Jersey Devils, you just got to get as many centermen as possible to try and survive without Jack Hughes.
Oh, never mind. Sorry.
What happened?
Thought it was a second-round pick.
Pierre LeBrun just tweeted out it's a 2025 second-round pick, and I thought he was talking about for Cody Glass. I was like, oh,
no.
That's a lot.
My guess is probably like a third-round pick for Cody Glass.
Okay.
So, but you're going upside there. Again, they just got to buy bulk right now. You got to go to Costco and get as many centermen as you can possibly have to hold down the fort without Jack Hughes.
All right, let's go around the room. Vibe check right now. What do you think the Blues are doing? We've got 37 minutes left prior to this year's deadline. A reminder, moves cannot be made after 2 o'clock. They can be announced after 2 o'clock, though. So it's possible the Blues will do something, and then it's not actually officially announced because they don't talk to anybody. It's not officially announced until like 2:15.
Yeah, the paperwork has to go through NHL headquarters.
Doug Armstrong is going to have a press conference coming up today at 2:30. The Fast Lane, I believe, will have that live for you right here on 101 ESPN. So you'll be able to hear Army in his full comments coming up at 2:30, so stay tuned for that. Alex, vibe check right now. What do you think the Blues will do today at the deadline?
I think they're going to acquire a defenseman. I'm a little surprised we haven't heard any connections, but I think what's happening right now is Doug Armstrong is calling teams and finding out what the price is. And then what you typically do is you do that old haggle thing where you just wait for the other team to call you back if nobody's willing to give it up. But I can't believe this team just stands pat. I can't, especially for how well they've played. You lose Parayko. You don't want to overpay, which is the only part of me that's like, okay, well, maybe they'll just sit there and say, no, the prices were too high. We trust what we've got internally. But I'm just really wondering if they're going to find a way to get one of these defensemen, and it's just working the phones right now all the way up to 2 o'clock.
I think they're standing pat, and I think it's twofold for me. I think, one, it is, hey, they don't really have a ton of assets to be able to move. Like, we've seen a lot of guys are getting traded right now today for second-round picks, or at least they're involved in these packages. They don't have one for the next 3 drafts.
Yep.
So I think right now it is hey, we don't really have the assets. And I think the other one is what you said is, I don't think Army wants to give up a first for some of these guys or first equivalent prospects, right? Like we ran through their prospects. Maybe a team's asking for a Juracek and like a third-round pick, and he's going, no, I don't want to give up on a Juracek. I don't want to give up some of these assets. Well, we're still kind of in the retool process. I think they're going to stand pat, or at minimum, maybe they add like a depth defenseman that they give up like a third-round pick, and it's not something that we look at and go, oh, okay, that was a really big deal for the Blues. You look at it and go, oh, okay, it was fine.
My guess is they don't do anything. Somebody said, why call a press conference if they don't do anything? He does it every year.
Every year.
He will speak with the media at the deadline no matter what. It's something that the Cardinals even do this. And if the Cardinals do it, it's something you have to do.
They hold 7 of them, though, so.
Sure, but at the deadline, the GM, president of hockey operations, whoever, they always hold a press conference on this day, so don't read anything into that.
Yeah, it's always 30 minutes after the deadline to give them time.
Correct. Yeah. So do not read anything into that. I think they end up not doing anything. That would be my guess. And if you couldn't move Shen, if he had told you, I'm not interested in moving, I want to see this thing through, I get not moving for anything. It's not what I would want them to do. I would prefer them to go out, be aggressive, add from the outside, go get Brandon Carlo. But it's possible they're holding out for not just like a first. Maybe they want a ton for Brandon Carlo. He's a guy that can play top pair minutes, man. He's a really good defensive, big, young, cost-controlled defenseman. Maybe they want to build around Brandon Carlo. He's only 28 years old. This is like somebody calling the Blues a couple of years ago and asking for Colton Parayko. No, I'm not doing it. I'm not interested. He's somebody that I plan to have here for the foreseeable future. So it's possible you just cross his name off of the list. And then you look at it, and maybe the Blues say a first-round pick for Jamie Alexiak, who's 32 years old and is a net negative for the Kraken right now.
I'm not doing that.
Doesn't make sense for us. A first-round pick for Mario Ferraro, who's been in a terrible situation his entire NHL career and doesn't play any defense. We're not doing that right now. We'd rather just run it forward with what we have internally. So I get that. I think what's holding them back right now is what T-Bone said. They don't have that second. They don't have the third-round pick for the next draft, and they don't have a second any of the next three. I don't mind that for Broberg. I don't mind that for Cam Fowler. I think those moves right now, you compare what the Blues were able to get for their second-round picks in 2025 and 2027. I'll stack that up against any other move that you see at the deadline for a defenseman, and I would probably take what the Blues were able to get.
Agreed.
The thing that sucks is what you had to do with Kevin Hayes. It goes back to last summer where you moved that second-round pick with Kevin Hayes to get his money off of the books. And when they made that move, this is not an I told you so necessarily, but it is I think it was an easy first guess when we saw that move and said, I don't know that this is one that I would have done. Buy him out, put him through waivers, do whatever, eat the money. Don't send that second-round pick, that asset, elsewhere when you could potentially use that to go acquire something for yourself. And that is where the opportunity cost was for the Cardinal or the Blues when they traded Kevin Hayes with that second round pick. You now don't have it today to potentially upgrade your roster.
Yeah, I still think they find a way to get it done. I think beyond Snuggerud and Dvorsky, they're prospects that at least, maybe Lindstein falls into this as well. They're prospects that at least they're willing to listen on, but you're right. Like, they're not going to overpay for a Carlo or a Alexiak or anything like that because it doesn't make sense to. But that's typically why you do the hold pattern and say, that's fine, this is what the price is. And if nobody else comes calling, how much does the team want to sit and hold? And that's why I think when you look at these three teams, San Jose, Seattle, Boston, they're in fire sale mode right now. They know they're bad. They know they're going to be bad for probably a couple of years. You set the price, they don't get what they want. Do they call back right before the buzzer beater and say, like, all right, that's fine, that's good enough? And that's where you wait to find out with Doug Armstrong. But I think you look at this and you say, we got to at least find something that can better this team for the now. And if you don't get it, you don't get it. You stand pat and you say, well, let's see if the system plays itself out. It's experience for Tyler Tucker and Matt Kessel down the stretch.
By the way, wanted to pass this along. Alex was 100% correct in the asking price for Cody Glass. It is a third-round pick from the Pittsburgh Penguins, and some minor league players are involved in that deal.
Was it a 2026?
It just says third-round pick. It does not say, at least according to Pierre LeBrun, which draft that pick is going to be selected in.
Yep.
But a third-round pick for him. Wyatt Johnston, according to Jeff Merrick, is expected to get a contract extension that is imminent. So it sounds like the Dallas Stars have basically their top line locked up.
You know what that kind of tells me? Jason Robertson's going to be a free agent soon.
He's got RFA status, though, doesn't he?
Oh, does he?
I think.
Well, maybe he's a trade commodity then.
Why? Why would you trade him?
Because now you've got Mikko Rantanen on the books for $12 million.
Jamie Benn's money's coming off the books.
Yeah, Wyatt Johnston's going to probably be $8 million.
Yeah, Robertson is 7.7 for this year and next, and then has RFA status as well.
I don't know. I just wonder.
They basically have nobody getting money on their defensive core outside of Miro Heiskanen.
Yeah.
So that helps them.
Yeah, who's a really good deal on that one, especially having Esa Lindell's kind of Colton Parayko-esque, and he's only making $5.2 million. So I've always said this. Jim Nill, in my opinion, is one of the best general managers in the National Hockey League. The dude, every single season, is meticulous on how he makes moves, what he decides to do, how much he's going to give a player, and he's aggressive when he needs to be. He's really good at what he does.
Do you think they're the best team in the West right now?
Yes, absolutely. Nobody touches them. I don't trust Winnipeg. Goaltending, obvious. Edmonton is a paper tiger, in my opinion. Yes, Dallas is a horse right now. And when they get Heiskanen and Tyler Seguin back, which they will in the playoffs, yeah, good luck beating that team.
What would you say are your top 3 teams as of today in the Western Conference?
Dallas would be 1.
I'd go Edmonton 2.
I would put Winnipeg over Edmonton.
Even despite their lack of... People are going to hear this and it might come off as me being overly harsh. I don't think Winnipeg has a true superstar on their roster.
No, but I think they play the pack mentality, which they work it really well. And you got a superstar in your goaltender.
Yeah.
And that's why I would put them above Edmonton. It's what Jeff Merrick told us yesterday. I always go to goaltending. I would pick Hellebuck over Skinner any day of the week. But Edmonton does still have McDavid and Draisaitl. I just think they're weaker on defense. They're weaker in net, and they don't have the depth. Oh. But I'd probably put Edmonton 3.
I would go Dallas 1, Vegas 2, Edmonton 3, Winnipeg 4.
I don't like how Vegas is, unless they pull a move off, which, I mean, believe me, we got plenty of time before they pull. I don't like what Vegas has going for them right now.
I just trust that team. I trust that team to get it figured out.
And they're just so big on their blue line. That's why I have them 3rd. I was going Dallas 1, Edmonton 2, Vegas 3. That would be my top 3 right now in the West.
It's going to be a hell of a Western Conference postseason. That is for damn sure. All right, with Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, we'll continue talking a little bit about the deadline, or we'll go to One's Got to Go. We'll got to see what's going to happen between now and the start of the next segment. If there's anything new, we'll certainly get to that here on BK and Ferrario.
101 ESPN is your home for Blues hockey. And every month during the season, you can register to win tickets to an upcoming Blues game. Enter to score free Blues tickets now at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 app.
Brought to you by Ted Drewes. Real custard, real tradition. Ted Drewes. It's St. Louis.
This is Alexei Toropchenko, and today is the Blues Game Day on 101 ESPN.
Blues Game Day is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings, the ultimate arena for wings and wins. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Drawing ever closer to deadline, I'm Bradford Bruns, and your Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Exactly 23 minutes from now, the NHL trade deadline comes to pass. St. Louis remains out of the fray at present. Blues GM and president of Hockey Ops, Doug Armstrong, will address the media at 2:30 in a presser to be carried live by the Fast Lane. Later tonight, STL and Anaheim drop the puck in Southern Cali. Our pregame coverage begins at 8 o'clock. College hoops tomorrow morning. Mizzou aims to rebound versus Kentucky. 101 ESPN features KU Arizona in advance of Note Kings action on the ice. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedorko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. This is BK and Ferrario. Time now for One's Gotta Go. We offer up the talking points, and you get to pick which one's gotta go on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for One's Gotta Go. You give us 4 options. We'll tell you which one's gotta go here on BK and Ferrario. But first, we're going to get to a little bit of news. This comes from the NHL. Darren Dreger saying that Wyatt Johnston, the young center for Dallas, has agreed to a 5-year contract extension worth $8.4 million per year. He was an RFA going into this offseason, so he gets a 5-year, $8.5 million deal with the Dallas Stars.
What a trade deadline for Jim Nill. You acquire Mikko Rantanen, and then you re-sign Wyatt Johnston. Man.
And you get Rantanen on an 8-year deal.
You know what? On day 7, he should rest because that was impressive.
Yeah. A really good day for...
They're a horse, man. I do not see a team taking them down as long as they stay healthy.
I'll be curious to see what the Vegas odds are for them coming out of today. I'll look that up during this segment. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for One's Gotta Go. Guys, One's Gotta Go Appliance Edition. An air fryer, microwave, stove, or the refrigerator. Air fryer, microwave, stove, refrigerator, which one's gotta go?
I'll get rid of the microwave because if I got an air fryer, I don't need the microwave.
I think for us, I would love to use the air fryer more often than we do. We just don't use it very often, to be honest with you, so that's the one that's got to go. I think the ceiling for an air fryer meal is so much higher than the ceiling for, like, a microwave.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever it is that you're putting in there.
It's nonstop air fryer for us.
Just use the microwave for leftovers more often, so that's the one that I would go with is the air fryer.
Yeah, I'd get rid of the air fryer as well. I've got one. I really don't like mine because I bought a small one. So, like, when I cook stuff, I have to cook, like, in small batches, which takes forever and is annoying. But you can kind of do a little bit of that stuff in the oven, too. So I would say get rid of the air fryer.
By the way, update on the Stanley Cup odds. The Dallas Stars, 6-1, co-favorites with the Florida Panthers. Edmonton is the next best at plus 650. And then, interestingly enough, the Carolina Hurricanes and Colorado Avalanche both at 9-1 to win the Cup this year.
I guess Carolina might go falling down that board rather quickly.
I like Vegas at 10-1 to win the title this year. That's probably the one that I'm most interested in based on their current odds. Be the way that I would go. I'm guessing you're still Dallas?
No, I mean, if I'm going off of, like, the best odds, I would take Winnipeg. I mean,
Winnipeg's odds is actually way lower on this list than
I would take Winnipeg for
15-1.
Yeah, I would take Winnipeg.
Wow, that's some serious value there.
Yeah, I would put a lot of money on Winnipeg if they're 15-1.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for One's Gotta Go, guys. One's Gotta Go. Nolan Arenado, Jordan Kyrou, or BK?
BK.
Okay.
Yeah. Congrats on what you did yesterday because I probably would have said Nolan Arenado before what you did yesterday.
No, I still would have got rid of him.
Yeah, you're right. Me too.
One's got to go. Useless technology, an alarm clock, flip phone, tablets, or a toaster oven. Alarm clock, flip phone, tablets, or a toaster oven.
People think alarm clocks are still useless.
I use an alarm. We have an Alexa, so.
I just use an alarm clock. We have it set
I've
on.
got an old school one.
We got one across the room, so you have to stand up and go turn it off. And also,
annoying.
I have an old school toaster oven that we still use. So probably the flip phone.
That's what. Yeah, I mean the flip phone has literally no use. At least all these other things you can do something with. Toaster oven, flip phone, tablets.
I don't even know if that's useless either. I use that still for a broadcast. So flip phone.
Tablet would be up there, but because mostly just because my laptop can become a tablet. But yeah, flip phone. I mean, you guys were telling me the other day about you had you had to press on the number 3 times. To get the letter.
T9 text.
That sounds annoying as all be. So
it took you about 15 minutes to send a response.
That's brutal.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. T-Bone, do you know the letters that correspond with the numbers on your phone? I'm guessing no, because you've really never had to use that.
No, isn't it 4 letters per number though? I've seen it 3.
I think there's only one that has 4.
Yeah, I have no idea, but I know they go in order. It's ABC, then D, E, F.
That
you
was
have to know what the letters were.
The only reason
I was doing 2 things at once. I was keeping track of the numbers and the letters. Woo! Don't try that at home.
The only reason why I would even know those is because of the texting. I know previously you would have 1-800 bets, those kinds of things. So it still did correspond with it.
Yeah,
but
mine was always weird because when you spell my name, you'd always have a 0 because of the X. That's how I remembered it. I know. I hated the X.
All right, one's got to go barbecue edition. Brisket, pork steaks, ribs, or burgers. This is more of a cookout edition.
Yeah.
Brisket, pork steaks, ribs, or burgers.
Mine's ribs, man. I'm not a rib guy.
I do not like pork steaks.
I like pork steaks.
I'm with you.
Does nothing for me.
You're not a St. Louis guy, so you're not either. Olney, Illinois.
Yeah, in Olney, we don't have pork steaks, but I'd say pork steaks as well. And I don't like cooking those things either. I think I burnt them all the time. My grandparents, when I lived with them.
Oh man, you get the little charcoal on the side of it, makes it even better.
They loved getting pork steaks. I'd have to go grill those, and I'd come in and I'd go, I hope you guys like them burnt because I think I ruined these.
Yeah, you got to get them charcoaled on the side so the little crunch to
I'm
them.
out. Get them out of here.
You guys are crazy.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You can always check us out on YouTube as well at youtube.com/101ESPN With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We got Bradford Bruns back in the studio for us today as we're broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center. And coming up next, we're going to put a bow on this thing. All of our final thoughts on the day, and you'll be able to hear Alex's open one more time that we had for today. I think if you're somebody that hates me, you'll take pleasure
we all do
in taking a listen to this. We'll get into that next year on 101 ESPN.
College basketball is on ESPN tomorrow. Kansas and Arizona. Pregame at 2:45. Tip-off at 3. NCAA plays on 101 ESPN.
Holtz of Kaufman Townsley. Injured by a careless driver? We work with the top doctors in St. Louis. We'll help you get the expert medical care you need and the maximum amount of money you deserve. Call 314-500-5000.
Hey, it's Kerry Davis.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. Let's run it back with the Daily Rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Couple of things to pass along real quick. Two bits of news from the NFL. According to Daniel Jeremiah, who's on with the Pat McAfee show right now, he said, quote, everybody in the NFL believes that DK Metcalf will be a New England Patriot by the end of the offseason. So it feels like the most likely landing spot for one of the best wide receivers in the NFL is going to New England. They're doing everything they can to land a legit number one guy for Drake May. Other piece to pass along here, also in the NFL, the Titans are hosting Abdul Carter today. He's the defensive end out of Penn State. Just so happens that they also released one of their defensive ends from their roster, and Harold Landry today as well. Abdul Carter just tweeted out a smiley face with him holding up the number one, an emoji with the number one.
Hey, Abdul, we don't know yet, all right? Why don't you wait till the draft?
All right,
so,
now we're not taking him.
Tennessee Titans maybe going to be taking Abdul Carter number one overall. At least that is the speculation today. I'm sure that will change 100 times between now and the NFL draft. All right, so if you missed it, Alex decided to come on the air today and chose violence. He put together an open for our show, and I think all of you should be able to hear it. If you missed it earlier today...
To be fair, you chose violence yesterday when you put that hat on.
Unbeknownst to me, the BKO was in full effect yesterday. This is courtesy of Alex Ferrario. It's time.
No.
Thomas trying to hike it back to Parayko, and he wins it. Look out! Parayko falls on his foot.
It is time, ladies and gentlemen.
No, God, please, no.
Yep.
No.
Yep. It's time for the conductor hat.
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
I think we need to go to the Dodgers game tonight. I think Albert might hit 700 tonight. So we agree. We say, you know what? Fine. We'll go to dinner and we'll head straight there right afterwards. We'll head straight to the game right after dinner. Dinner ended as he hit his 700th home run.
Oh, man.
We were going to go to the game. He hit it in the first two at-bats. BKO'd a national airline. Your flight crew, including the pilot, are currently in the air. We're talking to scheduling to find out what to do.
If you only knew the power of the dark side.
I thought you guys were out of your minds with this thing.
No, BKO is taking national levels.
I thought it was ridiculous. I can't believe that we have continued to do this over the now year that we've been together. Guys, I think it's real.
Why are you the way that you are? I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
It's time.
No.
It is time, ladies and gentlemen.
No, God, please, no.
Yep.
No.
Yep. It's time for the conductor hat.
101 ESPN.
Oh, Marsh, you seem ready. You ready to burst everybody's bubble here?
Yeah.
What? What's going on?
This is as of 3 minutes ago. The Blues put out on X, Colton Parayko will undergo a scope on his left knee and will be reevaluated in 6 weeks. Jeremy Rutherford has quoted it, saying, breaking, Colton Parayko likely to miss remainder of regular season.
Oops. I did it again, baby.
This legitimately just pissed me off again. I made it out of fun, but it legitimately has pissed me off twice today.
Somebody in the text line said, "Can y'all explain the conductor hat? If you don't get it, you don't get it. It's fine."
You don't. I'd love to be part of an inside joke one day.
Basically, it is when I put on the conductor hat, it means I'm ready to get on the train, the bandwagon. It's all aboard. And yesterday I decided to do that for the St. Louis Blues at 11 a.m. And by 2:05 p.m., it was announced that Colton Parayko is going to miss the rest of the regular season. Therefore, ipso facto, I shredded Parayko's knee. It's on me. If you need somebody to blame, it's on me. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Also, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. That's where the graveyard chat is available for you to yell at me. Get all of your thoughts. It's my fault.
Tweet at him at BK Sports Talk.
Yeah, I started the GIF train yesterday, and let me tell you, some were great.
At BK Sports Talk. If you guys have anything that you'd like to say to me, I get it. Get your frustrations out. Direct them towards me. This is not the Blues' fault. It's not Jim Montgomery's fault for taking that time out to make sure that his team was ready. It's none of that. It's not the Blues' fault for making that game go to overtime, so Parayko had to play even more time on the ice than what he had previously needed. No, it's none of their fault. It is my fault. For what took place with Colton Parayko.
I will tweet out your address later on tonight. People will come to your house to throw flaming bags of dog poop at your door and steal your patio furniture. That's what I am about to endorse after what you did yesterday. And then you throw Jim Montgomery under the bus.
Yeah.
No,
what kind of human are you?
I did no such thing. I told you it's not his fault. It is my fault.
That was like when Bannister threw Berube under the bus. Hey, it wasn't my fault. We lost to the Sharks 2 to 3 times.
And then Montgomery threw Bannister under the bus.
What's your favorite BKO?
I don't have a favorite BKO, man. These are the worst.
Because for me, I think we underestimate. Sometimes it can be for the good.
I guess it was the flight.
I don't remember a good one.
When I get mad at things, sometimes it actually ends up working out the opposite way. So, like, I remember Matt Carpenter, I think, was batting cleanup one day for the Cardinals. It was like in the middle of the summer. They weren't playing very well, and I got frustrated that Matt Carpenter was batting in the middle of their lineup. And I went on this 3-minute rant, which is my thing, right? And then that night he hit a grand slam. You guys remember that? That one was, I think, 2 years ago now. So that would be one for me that I really enjoyed, but it's because it ended up turning out good for the people that are listening. I don't like bringing you misery. It's not something that I enjoy. It's just something that I'm capable of.
I think my favorite was when you were texting us the night that you shut down the airport because I thought you weren't going to be back to work on Monday.
Somebody on the text line literally just texted in my address, which is a bit concerning.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
That's very creepy.
Is that a neighbor?
I don't know really what to do with
Or is that your wife?
What am I supposed to do with this?
Block it probably really quick. Well, the good news is we're the only ones that see that, though. That person might know where you live, which is a little concerning.
Yeah.
That's horrifying.
It's very horrifying.
Are they going to send a steaming pile of dog poop?
No, I'd be more worried about your patio furniture. You should probably lock it down when you get home.
Somebody else said the Pujols one was also a good one. That's fair. If you wanted to see Albert Pujols hit his 700th.
No, because that happened on Apple Plus.
Yeah, hold on. A, it was on Apple Plus, and B, he was going to get there no matter what. That was just a poor planning from BK.
Yeah, he just BKO'd it happening earlier when he wasn't there. Yeah. But, it was on Apple TV.
All right. I was busy with the text line. Have I missed anything? Is there anything new coming up?
Vegas Golden Knights tweeted out just hi.
God, I hate them so much.
10 minutes before the deadline, the Vegas Golden Knights are like, we might be pulling something
And then somebody's tweeted out saying, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Besser? Is it going to be Carlson? Is it going to be Crosby? Probably going to be all of the above. Mark Stone will go on LTIR today.
Suddenly Ovechkin's just on the Vegas Golden Knights. The Washington
How'd this happen?
We're like, you know what? Darren Pang was right. He is a one-trick pony. Let's send him to Vegas.
How'd this one happen?
So nothing happening.
Sounds like the Flyers are done making moves. So
so you're going to start
thinking that the Blues are interested, but reports come out of Philly that Philly's done for the day.
Yeah, you're going to start seeing a lot of teams tweet out saying like, "Yep, this team's done for the day. This team's done for the day." So until we see JR tweet that one out, I'd say you just never know with things going down the wire because we ended the show last year. And the moment we ended, we found out that Vegas made a trade. And you didn't find out what the trade was until about 20 minutes after. Yeah. So this could carry over. If Doug Armstrong speaks at 2:30 and no trade has been made, then we'll know.
So how you feel about it today, guys?
One of my buddies just texted me. He sent me a screenshot of my bet on Mizzou to win the national championship, and he said the Tigers are 1-3 since I received this screenshot. The one win was against South Carolina, which is the worst team in the SEC.
Yeah, you definitely did BKO them.
So you are legitimately the worst.
Okay, well, an Ivy League team and lose in the first round.
I don't know how serious this one is, but according to the morning skate, Brad Marchand to Vegas.
Are you messing with me? No, that's probably fake.
I mean, they were the ones that tweeted out earlier, Rantanen going to Dallas.
No, that's got to be fake.
No, that sounds like Vegas.
That sounds like Vegas.
Yeah, them tweeting out hi 10 minutes before the deadline closes.
There's no way.
We'll find out.
You act like they haven't done this before.
You act like that's not possible for this team. Again.
They didn't do that, right?
I think you'd be mistaken if you don't believe they did.
Man. I haven't seen anybody else put it out there yet, but we shall see. God, I love the trade deadline.
There's no way.
Hurricanes and Penguins are closing in on a Rickard Raquel deal.
Now, that's a good move by them, but does not justify the Mikko Rantanen trade.
There's no way.
Brad Marchand going to Vegas? There is a way.
Yeah.
How do they do this?
I
love them so much.
No,
I know you hate them.
I hate them. I can't wait to watch them.
Not even on LTIR.
I know. I can't wait to watch them get bounced in the first round. I hate them so much.
That's my favorite team.
Good.
And
well, now it makes sense why I hate you too.
I also love how they do it the back-to-back years, like
of the last the buzzer beater.
Yeah.
Good. They're going to choke like they did last year too.
I also, by the way, whoever's running that Twitter account, if they did just pull off this trade and their tweet was 2 letters, HI high. Oh my
God, Vegas.
Great work
Vegas' social media team always trolls.
All right. Last thing here. We'll get out of here on this and hand it over to the fast lane.
Jamie Rivers.
Popping on with us now.
Sorry, guys.
Timing,
jumping
Jamie?
on a little early here.
I'm glad you had clothes on, Jamie.
Well, Jamie, you can give your thoughts real quick as well. Right before the buzzer, we'll hand things over to you guys in just about 30 seconds. What do you think? Do you think that the Blues will get anything done prior to the deadline in 120 seconds?
Yeah, I don't think so. I've been kind of steadfast on this for the last handful of days. I think Doug Armstrong's happy with the team he has here. You see the quotes from Jordan Binnington talking about everybody loves each other in this locker room, and they want to do this together. They want to make this playoff run together, and I don't think there was a move to be made that would have helped the Blues that much. It probably would have been more of a selling process, and I think Army likes the group he has here right now.
Alex?
As we're here at this time, I don't think anything gets done. I think we would have heard something by now, so I think they're going to stand pat and make a run with this team.
T-Bone?
That's where I am. I think they're standing pat. I don't think they're doing anything today.
I think that's probably the case as well. We'll see if anything comes out after the deadline. Doug Armstrong speaking to the media coming up at 2:30. Jamie Rivers will be joining the boys, breaking down exactly what happens at this year's NHL trade deadline. We'll see if Vegas is able to pull things off, pull anything off at the last minute as well. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Did a great job back in the studio today is Bradford Bruns. We'll talk to you guys on Monday at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN. I don't have any control of this thing. It works in mysterious ways.
Well, boo you, BK.
Really? ESPN is everywhere. Wherever you go, we go. The 101 ESPN app in your app store or Google Play.